بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وعلى كل من تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. سبحانك اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. وبعد. Respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today, inshallah, we are hoping to discuss something which is not normally kind of discussed in a session. We want to talk about a scholar who is a living scholar, who's still alive. May Allah protect and preserve him. Normally, people write about people who've passed away. As soon as someone passes away, you'll get 500 Facebook posts. The Shaykh such and such, subhanAllah, he was amazing, he passed away, and may Allah enlighten his grave and enter him into paradise, and he did this and he did that. Until he's alive, nobody really appreciates the person. And this is normal human mentality. When something is with you, then you don't appreciate it. Some people, when they lose their husband or wife, then they start appreciating their ex. But when they're married, then they swear at them. So this is why I thought it's important to do a discussion on a scholar, a sheikh who is alive. Reason being, why do we need to talk about somebody? This has always been the case. We talk about the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his seerah, books and books. We always talk about him. There's nobody on planet Earth on whom there's more material written than the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as a continuation of that, we have books on the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. We discuss the Sahaba so that we could emulate, we could appreciate them, try to emulate them, learn from lives, lessons from their lives, and then continuously the tabi'un. So that's why we have tons of books in Islamic history, in our literature, what we call tarajim, biographies of great people from tabi'un and the great muhaddithun and the great fuqaha and the imams, and until today. Very rarely people write about somebody who's still alive. That does happen sometimes, but it's rare. There's two reasons for that. One is because the person who they are writing about does not feel right himself out of humility and humbleness, and he would actually say no, but then sometimes people just go ahead and write it. And number two is that people tend to write after they pass away, just because, as I said, the appreciation sometimes is not there. So we want to talk about somebody who's living and who's alive, and one of the great living scholars. Maybe you can see in the description of the talk that it's about Shaykh Mufti Taqi Usmani, حفظه الله. When we talk about Mufti Taqi Usmani, Shaykh al-Islam, we call him, and I will explain why some people use the term Shaykh al-Islam. The first thing that I would like to mention here is that, according to me at least, Allahu Alam, one of the crises of the time is, there are many problems. Ignorance is one of the crises of the time. And this is an offshoot of ignorance, jahl. That's actually mentioned in the hadith, not according to me. One of the signs of the Qiyamah, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وَيَظْهَرَ الْجَهْلِ, ignorance will increase. يَظْهَرَ الزِّنَا and وَيَكْثُرَ الْجَهْلِ, in the Sahih of al-Bukhari. So, ignorance in especially Islamic matters, jahala, is one of the crises, calamities of the time. And an offshoot of that is that one of the crises of the time is that the general Muslim public do not identify and recognize real scholars. Because you see, as I said, it's related. When you don't have, well, if someone has ilm, then they can identify to an extent who a real scholar is. And if somebody doesn't have ilm, jahil, ignorance, then as a consequence, as a result, they do not identify the real scholars and ulama. Because it's connected. And this is why I feel this is one of the crises of the time. You might say, why do they need to? Of course they do need to, because people need to know who to turn to in delicate Islamic matters, in the understanding of the Quran and Sunnah, in understanding the traditional methodology of the Quran and Sunnah, the understanding of deen that has been coming down from the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when we say understanding, we don't make it very, very narrow with all its differences and variances in the middle, but within that there is mainstream understanding with differences in that. Sometimes when we say mainstream, it's like this alleyway is mainstream and every other street is not mainstream. This is another problem. But we have a vast area of mainstream Islam. Some things are outside mainstream Islam. So therefore it's very, very important in this day and age to identify real scholars, who you turn to, whose books you refer to. Who are those? There's not just one, there's lots. Who are mainstream scholars? So as I was saying, one of the crises of the time is that people do not recognize real scholars. And the problem is, like I said, because there's a lot of jahal, a lot of ignorance. You have to have some knowledge. An example of that is like a doctor. It's like someone who has no understanding of medicine won't recognize who an expert good doctor is and who is not. Anyone who looks like a doctor, wears a suit and a tie maybe, and maybe has an iPad in his hand and looks the part, then he's a doctor. Even though he's checking Google Sharif for your medicines. I actually changed my doctor once, because too few times I went and he was checking on Google, like searching for the symptoms on Google. So I'm not a doctor, but we can't really determine. Sometimes you have a bit of aql and Allah gives you that this guy is not that capable or qualified. When that's the case with doctors at least, and every other field at least, that this guy, as long as he's got the qualification, then you can kind of rely and trust, because he will not get the qualification unless he knows something. And sadly speaking, I know a lot of people are hearing, this is not the case with Islamic scholarship. Because Islamic scholarship, number one, is private. So it's not like your exams and your tests and everything is coming from mainstream body. It's private. You could just open somewhere in a corner of some street and you can make your course 2.5 years or 5 years or 3 years or part-time, whatever. It's just made up. Somebody said 6-year alim course. Some people are doing it 5 years. I said, well, who said 6 years was alim course? Who said 5 years? Who said 6 years? Who said 7 years? It's just made up. It's all private. So we have private institutions. It's privately done. Some places more strict, less strict, but this is why it's very difficult to identify. You'll have 20 people graduating together, there might be 2 people. The difference between one person and another person is massive, huge. So one of the crises of the time is this, that people don't recognize scholars. Now, you see, because this is the case, normally people look at a good speaker. We're not trying to undermine anybody, but there are people with the title Shaykh, Alim, Maulana, Al-Allama, Mufti. Yeah, this is one of the real cheap titles. All of them are cheap, but especially the title Mufti, for people like me, just get it very, very easily. Now you could just be a nasheed prayer and could be called a Mufti. You might just have a good voice. Sadly, the general public, their understanding of a scholar is by these means. Who can give a powerful talk? If you've heard some YouTube talks on Pakistan, Allah says this, no, in Urdu, shouting, screaming, and everyone, Allah. Some people, the whole idea of Islamic scholarship is having a good voice. Every student graduates and wants to read like Sudais and Shuraim. That's a good scholar. You could call them da'i. Nobody's undermining. That's a work. But real scholarship, deep understanding of deen, is different to a da'i. Da'i is just a speaker, preacher. Preacher is different from an alim. Preacher is something else, alim is someone else altogether. This is why I tweeted a few times that a da'i is someone and a scholar is someone else altogether. A real scholar is someone else altogether. Sometimes there are people who just, advise and give amulets and, big dua for people. Good, alhamdulillah. We're not trying to undermine. They'll be rewarded for that as well. There's different things people can do. But the point here is that we need to identify who real scholars are. There's quite a few still have, alhamdulillah, in the world around. And one of them is Shaykh Mufti Taqi Usmani, حفظه الله ta'ala. And one of the signs of the real scholars is this, that they are identified and recognized by other scholars. You know, there's a saying in Arabic, you might have heard of this, إِنَّمَا يَعْرِفُ الْفَضْلَ لِأَهْلِ الْفَضْلِ ذَوُ الْفَضْلِ. إِنَّمَا يَعْرِفُ الْفَضْلَ لِأَهْلِ الْفَضْلِ ذَوُ الْفَضْلِ. The virtue of the people of virtue is only recognized by those of virtue. This is going back to saying that in order to identify someone, you need to have something in yourself. So someone like Mufti Taqi Usmani is well appreciated by other scholars. The public won't appreciate him. The general public won't. They want a speaker who comes and gives you a mesmerizing 1 hour talk where he makes you laugh and makes you cry and motivates you and, you know, takes you on cloud 9 and then brings you back to cloud 2 and then back to cloud 7 and then, you know, all of that, and there's rhythm and all of this. That's what they consider. If that speaker comes, even though he's like 0.1% of the knowledge of someone like Mufti Taqi Usmani, I'll come to Mufti Taqi Usmani, I'm just thinking this is just general, then they'll get, the public will pack the masjid to listen to his talk. There was, I remember, one great scholar from the subcontinent came, another from India, a great scholar in one of the masjids, and there was like 30 people who came to listen to his talk, and out of the 30, about 20 were scholars. And he is like one of the great scholars of the world. So this is why إِنَّمَا يَعْرِفُ الْفَضْلَ لِأَهْلِ الْفَضْلِ ذَوُ الْفَضْلِ. The people of virtue, the virtue of the people of virtue is recognized by those who have virtue. So if you have a bit of virtue, a bit of understanding, a bit of ilm, then you recognize these people. We're today talking about Shaykh al-Islam Mufti Taqi Usmani, حفظه. I actually mentioned this once in a program in London as well. I had to briefly just introduce him. And I said that, you know, I'm not even claiming that I've understood him, because I honestly believe I'm not even worthy to talk about. Because there's great people, you know, great people. I will give you some examples. Great people, his teachers, people who've passed away, great mashayikh, people like Shaykh Abdul Fatah Ghudda. These guys are praising him. Imagine these guys are talking about him and someone like me just coming and saying, oh, this is a great person. It just doesn't. But it has to be done because people won't read what Shaykh Abdul Fatah Ghudda is talking about him, what his father said about him, what Shaykh Yusuf bin Nouri said about him, what the great people who've passed away have said about him. Shaykh Abul Hasan Ali Nadwi, I'll talk about him as well, what he said about him. So people like us have to mention him, because otherwise people won't recognize this great person. So this is why I'm not here speaking about him just because I know him. He has thousands, you know, some people, alhamdulillah, I was honored to have studied at his institute and attended some of his classes, but I'm just one of thousands. Somebody once emailed me, are you the special successor of Mufti Taqi Usmani? And I'm like thinking, subhanallah, what's this guy? Is this guy crazy or something? And honestly, it is absolutely ridiculous. He has thousands all over the world. I don't claim to be his, like somebody once said, oh, you claim to be his main student. I never claim. I'm just like one of the people who refer to him and write, you know, from his books. That's it. If you see that someone sees that, then great, alhamdulillah. So I haven't even understood him. You have to live with somebody, you have to, you know, stay in their company for years, etc., to be able to understand. One of the scholars said about him that Mufti Taqi Usmani, hafidhahullah, is a scholar. Somebody told him, describe him in 1 minute, in one sentence. He said he is somebody whose every second of his life is more precious than gold and silver. Every second. So I don't like to take 5 seconds of him unless what I need to talk to him about is more valuable than gold and silver. Every second is more precious than gold and silver. So it's difficult to even understand what I'm going to talk about. What I'm going to say in this small discussion is just very superficially. To really understand the caliber of the man, the person, the status, people have to read books, people have to see, or maybe see him closely, study by him, or stay in his company. He, first of all, just to finish this point off, great people, like for example, his own father and teachers. I just remembered one thing. One of his teacher was somebody who I saw as well, attended some of his lessons. He used to teach Sahih al-Bukhari in Darul Uloom Karachi. Shaykh al-Hadith Maulana Sahban Mahmud rahimahullah passed away in 2001 or 2, around that time. When I was studying in Darul Uloom Karachi, he was teaching Sahih al-Bukhari. When he was teaching Sahih al-Bukhari, he used to say regularly that Mufti Taqi Usmani is my student in terms of how do we say it? Formally he's my student, but informally I consider him to be my teacher. And then he said, these people, when they talk, they don't just exaggerate. Whatever they say, they have they mention a reason. The reason is this, number 1, number 2. He said, the reason behind this is because when I'm teaching Sahih al-Bukhari and when I teach Hadith, I read his books, like what we have here, Takmila Fathul Mulhim, one of the commentaries which I will talk about, of Sahih Muslim. I read his books, commentaries of Hadith, to teach. So I am learning from him. And he also said another time that people generally, students generally, what do? They generally pride themselves in saying that this is my teacher. No, generally say this is my shaykh, this is my teacher, I studied by him, this is my... Generally, students pride themselves by their teachers. He said, in this case it's the opposite. I pride myself that Mufti Taqi Usmani is my student. It's the opposite. So, this is why great people have talked about him. Again here, another point. When we say Shaykh al-Islam, a lot of people, I know, ask, why is he called Shaykh al-Islam? Shaykh al-Islam is not a word in the Qur'an, it's not in Hadith that Ya ayyuhal ladhina amanu inna Shaykh al-Islam, O believers, Shaykh al-Islam is such and such. It's just, all these terms are just customary. You want to use it, don't use it. People make a lot of fuss about it. But he's known like that in Pakistan. Why? Because great scholars called him that. And one of the reasons was this commentary of Sahih Muslim, which I will talk about, which he wrote in many, many volumes. The person who actually wrote that was known as Shaykh al-Islam, Allama Shabbir Ahmad Uthmani. So the original Sharah was written by him, and then Mufti Taqi Usmani completed it. When he completed it, there was a big gathering, which I will talk about later. In that gathering, many scholars, his own teacher, this same teacher, Shaykh Sahban Mahmud, he said that in the gathering, I am his teacher, and from today I give him the title Shaykh al-Islam. So titles, not those titles that come from murids and from students, and definitely not Facebook followers and likers. Facebook followers, that's not real followers. One day they think you're the greatest Shaykh on planet Earth, the next day you're worse than Iblis and Shaitan. That really doesn't matter. And that's why, again, going back to the same point, that real scholars are those this is a really important point. Real scholars are those who get known to the people through scholars. You see, there's 2 ways. The general public love somebody, and then they get known through the general public by the scholars. So there's some scholars are sitting with general public, some shuyukh, say, oh, there's one sheikh like this, one sheikh like that. That's what happens normally. That's not real standard of greatness. Standard of greatness is when the public hear about somebody through ulama, through scholars. And this is exactly the case with Mufti Taqi Usmani. I myself, how did I hear about him? Just because I'm talking about him, I was just mentioning my experience. When I was studying in my student days in Darul Uloom Bury, my teachers used to mention him in class. Even in our final Sahih al-Bukhari, the final year, we used to read different books, and the teachers, when they're teaching Hadith, they're quoting him alongside Ibn Hajar Asqalani and others, and then every now and then they quote Mufti Taqi Usmani. So I'm thinking, who is this great Mufti Taqi Usmani? Even from the year before that. And even before that, I used to see his names on books. I used to hear, my father is a scholar, for those, some of you might not know. He used to have a lot of books at home. So I used to see a lot of Mufti Taqi Usmani's books every time Muhammad Taqi Usmani written. So this is real sign of greatness when publicity, comes from people above, when the scholars consider someone to be big, and then that goes to the general public. Therefore, you could call Mufti Taqi Usmani حفظه a scholar's scholar, a alim for the ulama. That's why sometimes if general public are not attending, maybe, if he has a lecture, for example, and not a lot of people coming, then it's not a problem, because he is benefiting. Sometimes great people, they don't benefit the general public directly as well. Sometimes, listen to this point as well, the great people don't benefit the general public directly, it has to be indirect. So many scholars, and I know this for a fact, so many great mashayikh across the globe, they benefit the public, different people in different areas, and they've learned from people, I'm not just saying Mufti Taqi Usmani, but from the great scholars like him. Like for example, in the subcontinent, he has lots of books on just general rectification, islah. So many scholars who speak Urdu, they actually read his book to give the Jummah khutbahs. Great scholars I know. They actually read his books, which I will talk about that book as well, Islahi Khutbat. So, this is why I just wanted to mention this, that we need to recognize and truly appreciate the real ulama. The term alim. Who are the real ulama? Very important. Now, talking more specifically about Shaykh Mufti Taqi Usmani حفظه, one of the greatest things that he had, and this should never be undermined, is that he had an amazing family. This is not always the case. Sometimes you can become your own self. Your parents could be non-Muslims and you could end up being, a great scholar. Or you could even be an orphan. Look at the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Of course, that was from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But a lot of the times, it does help that you have a father or a mother, especially in your parents, who are great scholars themselves. And sometimes even the opposite can happen. Nuh alayhi salam and his son, and you have Ibrahim alayhi salam and his father. So it could happen both ways. But in his case, his father was someone great, and he has taken a lot from his father. His father is known by Mufti Muhammad Shafi', the Grand Mufti, the late Grand Mufti of Pakistan, a great person who is known by a lot of people. He's the author of Ma'arif al-Qur'an. I have Ma'arif al-Qur'an here. I just wanted to just show that as well. 8 volumes, which is a commentary on the Qur'an. He's written many books, but he's known by this, Ma'arif al-Qur'an. This is volume 1, and there's 8 volumes, and they've been translated as well into English. Okay, the English translation we have here, Ma'arif al-Quran, English translation, all 8 volumes. Mufti Taqi Usmani has actually edited this, and we'll talk about this when we talk about his Quran works. So Mufti Shafi rahimahullah was a great scholar, and he took a lot from him. Mufti Taqi Usmani was born in, I don't want to make this like a biographical, when he was born and we studied by, and that's not the idea of this. These are just certain things about him. But this, why I'm mentioning his date of birth, because I don't want to mention this like a biography. He was born on this date, and then he attended madrasa here, and this was his teacher, and then he graduated this time, then he went in. That's not the idea. The discussion here is completely different. This is a different way of talking about somebody. But why I'm mentioning this specifically, that he was born in 1943. Which is October 1943 in a village called Deoband. And Deoband is a village. For some people who might not know, Deoband is a village. They might think it's something else. It's actually a village. 1362 Hijri. This was the same year that one of the great scholars of the subcontinent, Hakim al-Ummah, Shaykh Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi rahimahullah, passed away. Actually 3 months before him. I heard this from Mufti Taqi Usmani himself, that directly, this was in a gathering a few years ago somewhere, that my father, every time, because his father, Mufti Shafi' rahimahullah, was very close student, very close student of Hakim al-Mawlana Shaykh Thani rahimahullah. So every time when he used to have birth of a child, he used to ask. And it's good if you want to. You don't have to ask, but if you have someone who you like or you love, it could be your elders, your grandparents, your teachers. Nobody should force anything on anybody. In a nice way, if somebody wants to ask, well, what do you suggest? Okay, so with balance. I asked nobody, I just kept my own stuff with my children's name. Because I asked the hadith and it was in the hadith, alhamdulillah. So, but it's good sometimes. And a lot of people do that. They ask, but it's not further than wajib. So he used to always ask Hakim al-Ummah Mawlana Shaykh Thani rahimahullah that suggest a name. And this is also significant. He never used to suggest and give one name. He used to give a list of like 10 names. Choose any one, whichever one. And also write, if you don't like these, any others similar to this. This is the way, subhanAllah. It's just so much to learn in these, interactions. So he used to give a list of names. So his father kept different names of his brothers and sisters. And then, when Mufti Taqi Usmani was born, Shaykh Thanwi had passed away. So Mufti Taqi Usmani was telling us that every time when he used to send a list, Muhammad Taqi used to always be in that list. For all the other brothers, but my father never chose it from that list. Every time, 4 times, he's got 4 brothers, every time Muhammad Taqi was there. So then when I was born, then my father just kept that name. It was 3 months after he passed away. And this is quite significant, Allahu Alam, but I feel that, he was a successor to Hakim al-Ummah Mawlana Shaykh Thani rahimahullah ta'ala, a successor. Hakim al-Ummah Mawlana Shaykh Thani rahimahullah, for those of you, we don't need to talk about him because we need hours to talk about him. I have some books here which just his khutbat, his talks. How many? 32 volumes. Yeah, we have all these khutbat, Hakim al-Ummah. Can you see all these? In the brown or maroon or whatever color there is. 32 volumes. And at the top, Malfudat, Hakim al-Ummah, that's like 30 volumes. And just so many books. An author of like over 1,000 books. A lot of people considered him to be a mujaddid. Mujaddid, now I don't have time, we don't have too much time, but I'll just make this briefly. Mujaddid there's a hadith, but it's somebody who, there's a hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَبْعَثُ من هذه الأمة على رأس كل مئة من يجدد لها دينها. After every 100 years, Allah sends somebody. Now this is not some kind of invisible jinn type of Allah sends a spirit or something. He's a normal human being like everybody, but Allah chooses somebody from normal, when I say it's like no human being, but of course he has lots of knowledge and ilm and piety, etc. So someone who revives meaning matters of deen which there's ignorance, this person comes and revives it. One of the signs, and this is connected, so one of the signs of a mujaddid is that person is such that this person, in every major field and science of Islam, this person is at the top. We look at Hakim al-Ummah Mawlana Shaykh Thani rahimahullah, similar. There's actually a talk on YouTube by Mufti Usmani talking about, I don't think it's on YouTube, but he did this talk a few years ago, and it was actually in English. He actually did a sharh of this hadith. It was audio, so it's not on YouTube, in Blackbird. The sharh of the hadith, this exact hadith that I've quoted. And then he said, who is a mujaddid? He talked about it could be a person, it could be a group, it could be different people in different parts. Yeah, so some people just think only in the subcontinent. No, you could have a mujaddid for people in Africa. There could be one in Mauritania, different places. So in the subcontinent, a lot of people feel that it was Hakim al-Ummah Shaykh Thani rahimahullah. And then he explained why, because in every area, he has a contribution. If you look at that, same, we can apply the same to Mufti Taqi Usmani. The first sign is like 3 months after he passed away. Normally when one goes, the other one comes, like Imam Abu Hanifa, the year he passed away, Imam Shafi'i was born. Likewise, whenever a great passes away, another great is born. So similarly, in the same, like 3 months later, and if you look at Mufti Taqi Usmani, every field, we'll talk about all these fields and some of his books. If you look at Qur'an field, you look at the Sunnah field, you look at the fiqh field, you look at the tazkiyah, ihsan / tasawwuf, whatever you want to call it, field, or you look at aqidah field, you look at politics field, you look at all the different branches of Deen and Islam, he's got a massive contribution. When I say massive, meaning proper contribution, not just copy, just somebody, and no, real contribution. So we'll talk about some of these books. So going back to, just want to talk about this, that he was in that household. Mufti Shafi rahimahullah, he talks about his brother is a great scholar, Mufti Taqi Usmani. I can't not mention him. His elder brother, also one of my inshallah teachers, not like I did study in a class by him, but kind of teacher. I showed him a few things here and there. So, and one of his other brothers was actually a very intelligent family. One of his other brothers, Muhammad Wali Razi, he's still alive. He actually wrote a book in Seerah called Hadi Alam. Yeah, he wrote a book called Hadi Alam, a whole book over 150 pages of Seerah in Urdu, using only those letters that have no dots in them. So alif he used no ba, no ta, no tha, no jim, ha, yes, no kha, dal, no dal, ra, no da, zai, sin, no shin. Urdu, and he wrote 100 pages. He thought of words in Urdu which he can replace. It's called Hadi Alam. See, Hadi, the guide to the universe. And he actually got an award of acceptance and appreciation and acknowledgement many years ago in Pakistan from the government as well. This was a unique contribution. That's one of his brothers. Another brother actually passed away before his father passed away. He was a poet, Zaki Kaifi, marhum, rahimahullah. And Mufti Taqi Usmani also says that my first teacher, actually I heard this directly from him as well, and in some of the books is written as well. My first teacher was my mother. When I was at home, I read, there's a couple of books. There's actually a book in Arabic. Now, when I was saying people don't write about biographies, but some, like Mufti Taqi Usmani, there is a biography. There's a book, this is published from Dar al-Qalam in Damascus. If you see, Muhammad Taqi Usmani, al-Qadi, al-Faqih, wal-Da'iya al-Rahala. The judge, the jurist, the Da'iya, the caller towards Allah, the traveler, the great scholar, somebody called Luqman Hakim. He's a Maulana Luqman Hakim, he graduated from Dar al-Karachi. When I was studying there, I used to know him. He wrote this book in Arabic. So there's a few things about him, but this is like a biography of him. That's why I don't want to go, it's in Arabic. So it's mentioned there as well that I also forgot to mention, his grandfather was a great alim as well, Maulana Muhammad Yasin, rahimahullah. One of the first students in the great Deoband, Dar al-Ulum Deoband Seminary, and a great scholar. So his father, his grandfather, and then he was saying that my mother, one of the first books, my official first teacher was my mother. I read Beheshti Zawar and Sirat Khatul Anbiya by my mother. He says all of this. So his mother as well, he was born and he had an upbringing in great surroundings. And about his father, he's taken a lot from his father. Mufti Taqi Usmani actually has written about this many times, that Allah gave me, he thanks Allah, he says, Allah granted me the greatest honor Allah has had on me, that I was able to stay in the company of and learn for 30 years from my father. Because he only saw him for 30 years, because then he passed away. Because he's the youngest in the family. And I used to see him day and night, his fiqh, how he deals with issues. So this was his basic upbringing. I'm going to move fast quickly because I've got a lot of things to mention. And then he studied. Allah blessed him with piety. See, with greatness, you have to have a pious heart and mind. This is very, very important. I need your attention. This is very, very important. Yes. You have to have, and I'm going to mention this, maybe I'll mention it here as well, because sometimes, when someone has a great brain, they don't have the great heart. And if you've got good heart, you're very simple, you don't have a brain. This two things together like this is very, very rare. So he from a young age, he's been, and his name is Taqi, which may have a contribution, which means pious. The word Taqi means from taqwa. There's a hadith of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, وَلَا يَأْكُلْ طَعَامَكَ إِلَّا تَقِي. Your food should be eaten by someone of piety. I just remembered something here. Once he came to my house, I invited him for food many years ago. I don't know if I remember. So where he was going to sit in his plate before he came, I put a small piece of paper and I wrote the hadith in brackets. وَلَا يَأْكُلْ طَعَامَكَ إِلَّا تَقِي. Your food should only be eaten by taqi. So it was literal as well as the hadith. But anyway, I knew he smiled a lot. Alhamdulillah. So I was saying that, this was his upbringing. So from a young age he was very what? Intelligent, very understanding. He studied in Darul Karachi. He studied Islamic study. By age, he never memorized the Qur'an. He never became a hafiz. A lot of times you think that this is the natural order of the things. You have to be hafiz, and then you go like you're half a shaykh by being a hafiz. A lot of people think you're half alim. So he actually never did that. But he actually knows the Qur'an. He can recite. I've heard him reciting ruku', 3 rukus from here and there from the Qur'an. Why? Because through the meanings he knows the Qur'an. But he never sat down formally to memorize the Qur'an. At the age of 16 he graduated from the madrasa, and then he started doing the iftar course and takhassus, and then after that he went to study. He obtained his alimiyya and degrees, etc., and then he got a master's degree from Punjab University, a degree in economics, and an LLB, a law degree. So he was teaching at the time. After he graduated, when he was 21, 22, 23, he's a teacher in Darul Karachi. At the same time, he's at the university every day. I heard this from him in class once, that you guys, sometimes students, you don't see our early days. I used to teach from morning till about 1 o'clock, from 7 in the morning till 1 o'clock, teach all the first year, second year, third year books, because down there in Darul Karachi, they're very strict. You don't just graduate, no matter how clever you are, you don't get books straight away. You have to spend like 5-6 years, the first 2 years, teach every book. And another 5-6 years for the second, third year, you get promotion gradually. It takes you 20 years to get towards the end of the years. So I used to teach, and then after that, quick have lunch, and then go university. Until 8 p.m. at the university, studying. I'm coming on a bus and hanging on a bus like in Pakistan, I come back at night, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and then I start doing mutala'a, like preparing my lessons to teach for the next day till 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 3 o'clock. And then go to sleep for like 2-3 hours and go back to class to teach at 7. Every day used to pass like this. So he got all these degrees in law, in economics, and he was very sharp, very clever, very brainy, alhamdulillah. So all of this helped. And some of the scholars, and I was trying to find this quote, somebody shared it on social media as well, that some of the early scholars from the subcontinent, they used to make dua, and they would have a desire, and they would say that how admirable would it be if someone from our traditional scholars would learn English, would get a degree in economics and law, and learn and study and understand secular education, and then spread teachings of Islam in their language, in utilizing all these degrees. They used to constantly, like people like, as far as I remember, it was Maulana Rashid Ahmed Gangohi, rahimahullah, and people like that used to say this. So some scholars have said that those du'as of these great people came into fruition through Mufti Taqi Usmani, hafidhahullah. I just remembered one thing, that one scholar said that it was as though there was a group of great people. From the subcontinent you find these great scholars like Shaykh Rashid Ahmed Gangohi, Shaykh Ashraf Ali Thanwi, Imam Anwar Shah al-Kashmiri, Shaykh Qasim Nanotwi, Shaykh Khalil Ahmed Saharanpuri, the really old ones, earlier ones. It was like a group of them traveling together. And the train stopped at a service station. This is some great scholar talking about this. This is why I said we hear from big people about him. The train was stopped at the service station. They all came outside to have some tea and coffee, and then one person got left behind and the train went away. And the person who got left behind was Mufti Taqi Usmani. Basically, he is of that caliber. He belongs to that group. And this is why I said in one of my small talks on YouTube, it was a small, not a talk, but it was like a promotion video I said, the greatest compliment I can think of giving Mufti Taqi Usmani, is that it is an honor to be just living in the same world at the same time he is living. Living at the same time. Because we are not living at the same time as Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani and Imam Nawawi and Imam Tahawi. He is of that caliber, as scholars will understand. So, this was his beginning of secular educations, etc. And because of his extreme knowledge, people started appreciating him from all different parts of the world. Not just in the subcontinent, because he writes in Arabic, he writes in English. I remember when I went to study in Syria, the shuyukh and ulama would ask me, and when I would just say I studied in Dar al-Ulum Karachi, and I was a bit like, yeah, I am a student of Mufti Taqi Usmani. Of course we shouldn't be saying like that, because he's got thousands. This is I don't like this as well. One of the calamities and crises of the time is this: oh, I'm a murid of the Shaykh, like as though people think it's like you belong to some group, and now everyone's just boasting. Tasawwuf has become like that as well. This is boast. Oh, this is my Shaykh. This is my Shaykh. I'm part of this. This is not right. So, but that time I was maybe younger and I was doing that a bit. So I used to tell, and then they would stand up. I remember Shaykh Nuruddin Ittar, حفظه الله, still alive, one of my teachers, one of the great scholars of Hadith. When he found out, he actually started honoring me just because I had studied. When I saw that, that's why I started telling others as well. And I remember then I was traveling from Syria to Pakistan. He actually asked me if I could take all his books that he had authored as a gift to Mufti Taqi Usmani. And also I remember that when Mufti Taqi Usmani went in 80s to Syria, Shaykh Nuruddin Ittar and a group of scholars came to the airport, stayed with him from airport to airport. Many people have said, like, that's why he doesn't even tell people in Haramain, that people, when they find out that he's coming, there'll be people waiting outside the airport. Great shuyukh, just come to my house for 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I heard another scholar saying that we have this great ni'mah in Pakistan. We don't appreciate this ni'mah. People in the Arab world appreciate him. They actually, because they are scholars, they realize. There was somebody called, and I'll mention this here, Shaykh Muhammad Yasin al-Fadani, rahimahullah. A great scholar. He lived like 93 odd years of age. He is known I was going to mention this in the hadith, but we can mention it here. Somebody who gathered, he was known as Musnidul Asr. So many asanid he had gathered, all the musalsalat. Students of knowledge know what musalsalat are. Those who don't know, just maybe find out, read somewhere. But it's like hadith continuation. You have different types of musalsalat. He had the most musalsalat. He passed away, I think, around in the mid-90s or something like that. Shaykh Muhammad Yasin al-Fadani, rahimahullah, in Makkah. He's originally Indonesian, but he used to live in Makkah. One of the great scholars of the subcontinent who recently passed away, Shaykh Muhammad Yunus al-Junfuri, rahimahullah, a great scholar in hadith, and especially somebody who was a master of Sahih al-Bukhari. Well renowned even in the Arab world in this field of Sahih al-Bukhari specifically. So he actually normally, all the time used to say, I heard this from him as well, a few times when he said, one of the greatest regrets in my life is that I was never able to take ijazah from Shaykh Muhammad Yasin al-Fadani, rahimahullah. And then he used to always say that this hadith ijazah is like a rizq. If it's written, it's written. He used to always say this. This is like rizq, it's sustenance. If it's written, you get it. If it's not written, you're not getting it. This is not to compare anyone with anybody, but just this point I remember to show how great Shaykh Yasin al-Fadani was. People would travel from across the globe to go and take ijazah from him. Mufti Taqi Usmani has many asanid from him, but Shaykh Yasin al-Fadani, again, this is the point. Shaykh Yasin al-Fadani was feeling proud to give him ijazah, and he actually wrote a book. Who wrote a book? Shaykh Muhammad Yasin al-Fadani. I've got it there. I don't know if you can show it. Maybe it's somewhere there. Al-Fayd al-Rahmani fi ijazat al-Shaykh Muhammad Taqi Usmani. The Shaykh is writing a book that I am giving this Shaykh ijazah. Like, imagine, the one who's giving ijazah permissions is finding, this privilege that he wants to write a book. Sheikh Yasin al-Fadani, who people travel from, it's okay, leave it. People travel from different parts of the world. And there's a story mentioned as well, which I think I've written about, and some others have mentioned. Sheikh Yasin al-Fadani gave him once on the 10th of Muharram that hadith only, which he didn't tell anybody. Mufti Taqi Usmani traveled and he didn't tell anybody. He had come to Makkah, and then he actually, somebody came whilst he was doing tawaf, said, look, Sheikh is calling you. And he said, why are you calling me? And he said, how did you know that I was here? He said, don't ask me how I knew. Maybe somebody told him something about those. But, because people start thinking here, then, this is, how did you know? And Allah put in his heart, no big deal. Even if that happened or someone told him, just with balance. So this is, I was talking about Shaykh Yasin al-Fadani, rahimahullah. And just before that, his father and these great scholars, yes, I was saying great scholars appreciate him. Now, Mufti Taqi Usmani, Shaykh al-Islam, حفظه, he has been the vice principal or president of something what we call Majma' al-Fiqh al-Islami. Have you heard of Majma' al-Fiqh al-Islami? No? You have? Islamic Fiqh Academy. This was an international body. I need your attention so that I can concentrate. It's good because I need people in front of me. So, this was an Islamic Fiqh Academy that was initiated, I think, in the 1970s. It was under OIC, Organization of Islamic Countries Conferences. All the Islamic countries, governments, I think it was actually a suggestion of the king of Al-Hijaz, I like to call Saudi Arabia, as it's called. That time, King Faisal or King Khalid, I'm not sure who it was. And he said, what, we've got a lot of these issues in the world, contemporary fiqh issues, because new issues are coming up. So we need a body of Muslim scholars from all around the globe, from Muslim countries, and they need to be officially organized. And the headquarters was based in Jeddah. Okay, because mainly Saudi government funded, but maybe some others contributed. This was called Majma' al-Fiqh al-Islami, Islamic Fiqh Academy. It's still around, but now it's not like how it's supposed to be, like a lot of these things. Azhar is not like as it was supposed to be. So even last 2-3 years, some of the great people who were there, most of them have passed away. Sheikh Wahab al-Zuhaili was on Islamic Fiqh Academy. Sheikh Qaradawi is there now as well, and he's very, very old. But there were some great people of the whole world, scholars, great people. Especially, imagine the caliber of people, 1970s, 80s especially, and 1990s. They would vote and make somebody the Ra'is. They have different departments, organization. The Ra'is was always somebody, as far as I know, I don't want to mention anything which is inaccurate, so that's why I'm trying to be very careful, was always somebody from Saudi Arabia, because it was Saudi Arabia based headquarters. But what they did was they got the top scholars from every country. So the greatest faqih from Mauritania, the greatest faqih, Sheikh Abdullah bin Bay'a was in there as well. Greatest faqih from Qatar, from Bahrain, from Morocco, from Somalia, from Sudan, from Yemen, from Syria. Sheikh Wahab al-Zuhaili, Sheikh Sa'id Ramadan al-Buti, all these guys, they were all. Sheikh Abdul Latif al-Farfur al-Hasani, one of my teachers, rahimahullah, has passed away a few years ago in Syria. He also used to talk to me about Mufti Taqi Usmani that we meet down there in Islamic Fiqh Academy. So for many years, I don't know exactly how many years, but good 10, 12, 15 years, Mufti Taqi Usmani was voted and considered to be the vice president, second head. The first head has to be from Saudi Arabia. And he remained, all the scholars considered this is an Ajami, a Pakistani Mulvi who doesn't know Arabic. All the Arabs ad'anu lahu, submitted to him, just like, because you see, the Arabs, they're not that arrogant. That sounds bad, that means they're a bit arrogant. Okay, of course, but the Arabs feel very, I wouldn't use the word arrogant, but they're proud about their language, and they have a right to be proud. If somebody has a right to, in the right way, somebody has a right to be proud in a right way, then it's the Arabs, without causing any racism, etc. because it's the language of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So they don't easily what? They don't easily submit to non-Arab scholars. But when they do see greatness, then they're not that stubborn that they don't give that credit. But they have to see the greatness. Look at Imam al-Bukhari. All the 6 books. Imam al-Bukhari, Imam Muslim, Nasai, Abu Dawud, Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah. All of them. And the Arabs all appreciate Imam al-Bukhari. So they really, they gave importance to Mufti Taqi Usmani. I'm just trying to show that across the world, this is what you call scholars. He might come to England to do a talk somewhere and you'll get like 20, some few people. But the scholars are giving him this. There's another organization, Hay'atul Riqaba Shar'iyya, accounting and auditing or something, it's a long name. I forgot. But IOFI it's called right now. This was another organization that was set up, headquarters in Bahrain, set up to regulate all the Islamic banks of the world. Because you see, anyone can have, like I was saying, Darul Ulooms, everyone has their own criteria. So people can have their own criteria. So a lot of the governments, they said, look, we need to have a body that actually governs all the banking, and they will decide, and all the banks have to follow, all the Islamic financial institutions and banks have to follow the resolutions and the guidelines given by, when I say resolution guidelines, before I go to this, the Fiqh al-Islam, the Fiqh Academy, they were discussing, I didn't finish that off, so since 70s, 80s, 90s, they were discussing all these issues like cloning and organ transplantation and blood transfusion and monetary matters and banking issues, all the modern issues. And all these scholars from around the world, they used to get together, meeting once in Mecca, once in Medina, and then they come to resolutions. This organization is just for the Islamic banking regulation. And there's about 10 or 11, 12 cream of Islamic finance scholars. Again, I will mention, people think Mufti Usmani, expert Islamic banking, that's the only thing. That's like 5% of what he does, and he is. This is why I want to go back when I talk about books. Mujaddid, I mentioned. The sign of a Mujaddid is that every field he is such that people think that he's an expert only in this field. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. The bad thing is that people think, like some people who know banking, they'll just know him as a banker, Islamic finance expert. If somebody is just in tasawwuf, they'll just say this is just some hazrat, that's it. They don't know anything else. So that could be a bad thing, because you're so good in every field that you're like an expert as someone who would just spend their whole life in that field. So this Hay'atul Riqab al-Shar'iyya, this is an organization of like 10, 12 Shaykh Nizam Yaqubi and many others, great scholars, about 11, 12 of them. And all the banks, they are regulated by this organization. And Mufti Taqi Usmani has not just been part of this, but he's been Ra'is, the head. What they do is every 3 years they vote. Who votes? These 12 of them, they vote. Who do you want to be the next president? Every year they just vote him. All of them, all the rest of them, mostly Arab scholars. So this is his understanding. This is his appreciation and from in different parts of the world. So as I was saying, going back to this point, that from a young age, when he was actually going into his final year, Bukhari, the final year when students study, he wrote a risala. This was actually his first. I have a book here, Fiqh Maqalat. The black one, Fiqh Maqalat. I can't see it here. No, it's a small one. Just find it from there. The black one there. No, just underneath that. Urdu. Fiqh Maqalat, just verse number 1. Yes, on your left. Yeah, you've missed it now. Yeah, there. Number 1. If you see these are like 6 volumes. We're going to talk about his books, inshallah. I don't want to take too much time. We've already gone quite a bit. Check number 2. Sorry about that. This is called Fiqh Maqalat. Number 2, there's about 5-6 of these. These are all like just fiqh articles. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but there's one here in Urdu, Ramadan mein nafil ki jama'ah, offering nothing in congregation in Ramadan. You know when he wrote this, how old was he? 16 or 17. And this was actually a refutation of a position article written by the great scholar of that time, Shaykh al-Islam. He was also called Shaykh al-Islam, Shaykh Maulana Hussain Ahmad Madani rahimahullah, whose opinion was that offering in the Hanafi madhab, this is a disagreed upon issue with respect, of course. His opinion was that to offer the tahajjud prayer in jama'ah in Ramadan, like we have congregation, it's fine, permissible, or mustahab, or recommended, or it's. So Mufti Taqi Usmani actually refuted this. And his father received this question. So his father was very busy. So he thought, let me just give my son, who's actually going to graduate next year, he's about 16, 17 years old, and give it to him. He actually told him that, just find the references and bring the references to me and then I'll write it. But the Mufti Usmani gathered all the references from Hadith and the Hanafi fiqh references and actually wrote something as well. His father saw it, and his father actually wrote that, when I saw this, I thought my son, there's actually an introduction here. He says here that I couldn't do it myself, and I thought my son will just get the references and bring it to me, but I've seen this, my son seems very, very intelligent. What he's written is more than enough, and I don't need to write anything. And he wrote this. This is a small risala, his first booklet from a young age. This fiqh maqalat is like in 5-6 volumes. These are like in Urdu, some of his articles, fiqh related articles. Maqala means an article. So from a young age, one other point just came to my mind. There's lots of things and came to mind. He's also, for those people that know about those 500 influential Muslims, and see, they recognize that they've put him in the last year. He's always been in the top 20, 25. This is not a criteria of anything. Yes, I'm not just trying to, I want to make this clear as well. The criteria of being in there is not any, or the 500 is not really a criteria. It's just a passing comment. Just like being on Facebook, having 4 million followers is not a criteria for anything. Having lots of followers on Facebook or Twitter is no criteria of being a scholar. This is one of the problems of today. You could be a greater scholar and you could have no Twitter. You could have 2 followers. So this is also this 500, but he's number 6 as well because of the influence that he has. Now, he has, like I was saying, different areas of Islam that he's contributed. He is also called Justice, Al-Qadi, Justice. Why is he called the Justice? Because he's not just because he's got a degree in law, because he remained a judge in the Supreme Court of Pakistan for good 20 odd years until 2002, from 82 to 2002. When President Zia-ul-Haq, who was one of the great presidents of Pakistan, may Allah have mercy on him, a great individual who had a lot of concern for the Ummah, and Erdogan reminds me of him now in this day and age. Very similar type of person. When he became president, this was General Zia-ul-Haq. Yes, so many of you may not have heard of him. He was actually very close to Mufti Taqi Usmani. Mufti Taqi, he used to actually take advices from Mufti Taqi Usmani about a lot of issues. Sometimes Mufti Taqi Usmani writes in one of his books that sometimes in the 11 at night he would just call me and say, look, tomorrow in the assembly, or we're going to have a vote on something, or what shall we do about this? And he really wanted to implement Islam, and a lot of things happened because of him in that time, in Zia-ul-Haq's presidency. And he did a lot of work. So one of the things was that he made a Sharia bench, Sharia in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has different benches, different departments, and one was the Sharia bench, that if you want to take a case, what's that word I'm looking for? Contest a case relating to Sharia, but high level. Like, for example, if you want to take the government to the court, if you say this law of the government is against Islam, you can take the government to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court had three judges. One of the judges was Mufti Taqi Usmani. For 22 years he remained. So that you take the government to the court, and many things were, and he used to actually, I remember when we were studying as well, once a month he used to be in Islamabad. And he had to go there, look at different cases, and a lot of, very, very deep. He used to have friends who were judges. There was somebody called Justice Chima, very close to professionals. These are academics who Mufti Taqi Usmani was very close with, and they used to travel, and do different things. So he would have to go to Islamabad every once a month and look at all the cases and deal with them. And a lot of these cases in the courts relating to a lot of different Sharia issues, they've all been published as well. I have here Adalati Faisle. These are like, look, 2 volumes. Can you see volume 1? Just put volume 1. These are juristic decisions. Faisla Rajam, the judgment on Rajam, which is a penalty, penal law, punishment. Faisla Tasweer, the judgment on picture making and tasweer. Shufa'a, preemption. Qisas, diya, something about retirement, zakat and ushr. And things about land, milki of land, different things. These were all these different judgments that he actually played a massive role in. And from this, one of the great things that happened through that was his juristic. Look, this is a book in English. The Historical Judgment on Interest in the Supreme Court of Pakistan. And this is actually why he actually had to leave, because the president at that time wasn't too Islam friendly. Actually, he was writing a massive judgment that in Pakistan, all interest-based banks had to be closed down. Interest had to go. And they couldn't do that. So they actually removed him instead before this came out. But before the judgment came out, which became enforced, so 2001, 2002. But he wrote this as well. This is from the historical judgment delivered in the Supreme Court of Pakistan. So this is why he's called Al-Qadi, the justice. A lot of times they're just saying, Justice Muhammad Taqi Usmani, Justice Muhammad Taqi Usmani. There's much more, but like I said, there's not too much time to talk about a lot of these issues. And then now we're going back to this Mujaddid part. Mujaddid, one of the signs, Allahu Alam, is somebody who excels in every field. Just an absolute every field. So I've just mentioned one field to you. Law. From an Islamic point of view. If you look at it if you look at all the different fields, okay, I want to make this short because I'm getting tired as well. He's not just an expert. Shaykh Mufti Taqi Usmani, حفظه Allah, is not just an expert in Islamic banking. I remember once he came here and there was a program relating to Islamic economics, and there was a non-Muslim who made a comment because he heard another scholar speaking, and he was actually giving a biography of Mufti Taqi Usmani, talking about him, that he's great in tasawwuf and he's great in this. So this non-Muslim, when he heard this, he said, "Oh my God!" And he was supposed to also talk. He was I forgot his name, very well-renowned expert, one of the experts, non-Muslim in the world. He was actually invited to, he was at university, he was at SOAS. He actually said, after hearing this, I'm astonished. I thought that this Mr. Taqi Usmani is somebody who just, since he's an infant till now, he's only been studying finance and business and commerce, and he's excelled. Like, I can't imagine him doing anything else. Such an expert. We have dedicated all our lives to expertise, and he's more expert than us in this field. It's as though he has not done anything else. How can you do something else? Like Mr. Taqi Usmani, I'm flabbergasted, I'm gobsmacked that he actually has even contributed, let alone be an expert in other fields. This happens very rarely. And this is a sign of mujaddid. You have to be blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with intelligence, with time. One of the things about him is his time, and I was going to talk about that as well. Every minute he has a timetable. You could say somebody who's never, Allahu A'lam, wasted a minute in his life. Scholars have said that this is the only way you can be like he is. You need, some things are wahabi, you're blessed by Allah, intelligence and then some things, your own effort. He's never wasted a minute in his life. This is what a lot of scholars say. He's very particular. Like there's an interview about his wife once gave, in his written format, that this is his timetable. In the last 35 years, I've never seen this timetable change in any way, shape or form. So, this is his, all these different fields, mujaddid. Okay? Different fields. We talked about law. If you look at his contribution to Qur'an, we know lots of people, such and such person. Tell me some translators of the Qur'an.
Abdul Halim.
Professor Abdul Halim, he's still alive. Some other people, Yusuf Ali, and Pickthall, and whatever. We know them by that. That's their lives. Alhamdulillah, we're not undermining. I don't want to kind of like say, look at these people. We're just trying to show that he's an expert. But a lot of these people are known by that job, work. And it's great because that's normal. That's how it should be, an expert. And you have to dedicate your life to a work like that. They might do some other small things here and there. I'm not saying no one does anything else and only this. But to be an expert in every field. So now these are translators of the Qur'an. Shaykh al-Islam Mufti Taqi Usmani, حفظه الله, in relation to the Qur'an, he has, first of all, he worked, like I said, his father's Ma'arif al-Quran. His father's Ma'arif al-Quran is the 8-volume tafsir, commentary of the Quran, which I showed. And then I also showed that this is the English translation. Now this English translation, what did he do? He edited it. And I remember he used to edit this throughout his travels, his journeys, never at home. And this is, most of his work has been done on planes and aeroplanes and trains and cars. I remember once, many years ago, he came to England. I wasn't in the car with him, but he came to our city of Leicester. And then from here, he had to go to London. Somebody who was with him in the car, he actually told me that they sat in the car and he spoke to everybody for about 10 minutes until they got to the motorway. And then he said, okay, now, inshallah, if you guys don't mind, I need to do some work. So, and he opened up his laptop and he was editing Ma'arif al-Quran. 2 hours to London. Most of his works are done in planes. And this is the same way of many other scholars before. We hear somebody mention about Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda, rahimahullah, one of the great scholars of recent times, that he was traveling once and they went to the airport, the plane got delayed for 2 hours, so all the scholars and students who had come to see him or receive him off at the airport, he said, let's sit down in the corner of the airport. They sat down and then one of the hadith books, I don't know, Imam Dhahabi's book or something, they read the whole book for 2 hours at the airport. This is valuing time. So he worked on this. Somebody used to translate and give it to him. And then he used to work on it for many years, 8 volumes. Because he's an expert in English as well. He worked. And then after that, he actually wrote a muqaddama, an introduction to this as well. And then out of that came the idea, he translated the Qur'an. He translated the Qur'an into English. Actually, and he's very humble, which I will talk about later on. But he writes in this that people were telling me, I've never thought that I'm worthy of translating the Qur'an. Have you read this in the introduction? Like, how can I even translate the Qur'an? I think that's somewhere here, he says here. This is the introduction, but before the introduction, maybe, yes. This was in 2005. Whilst translating the Ma'arif al-Quran, his father's Ma'arif al-Quran, then he talks about it, this idea came. And he mentions here is so anyway, that I'm not even worthy, but then because people really stressed that and insisted the noble Quran, 2 volumes, and I really encourage lots of people. I mean, I use this all the time for my translation. This is a very good translation, and it's published from Karachi, Pakistan. And if you can, inshallah, everyone should have it's noble meanings, the meanings of the noble Quran. So there's a translation, and sometimes there's some footnotes, brief. It's like a beginner's guide to the Quran, basic understanding. And then after that, if he's doing something in English, then the people of Urdu, they also started insisting. A lot of his works, I will mention this point, a lot of his works, when I say works, not just the work of writing books, but general works, and I will mention this more when I come to Hadith, came out after insistence of great people, others. Like we try to do things, when we want to do it, nobody tells us to do it, and we just want to go and do it. In his case, that's what is based on the Hadith. لا تسأل الإمارة. Don't try to get positions. If you want it, then it will be entrusted to you. بغير سؤال, if you're given, and you don't want it, but then others. And this is a great, lesson to learn for students of knowledge, that when people above you put you in places, there's great barakah. This has always been the case. So most of his books, lots of people of knowledge started writing to him that, can you please write a translation Urdu. Scholars, great scholars wrote to him. So then this is Asan Tarjuma Quran Tashrihat ke saath, basically easy translation of the Quran with explanatory notes. This is in 3 volumes. I have volume 2, volume 3 here. It's also been published together in 1 volume now, like a thick volume. This is all his Quran contribution. Not just there. Many years ago, he wrote a book called Ulumul Quran. Ulumul Quran is a subject on its own. Great scholars earlier on wrote Ulumul Quran. Imam As-Suyuti wrote Al-Itqan fi Ulum al-Quran. We have all of them there. Manahil al-Irfan fi Ulum al-Quran. Tibyan is more adab. Imam Nawawi fi adab hamalat al-Quran. Manahil al-Irfan, al-Burhan. Can you see them there? Yes. So Ulum al-Quran is basically introductory science to the Quran. So like for example, and he wrote in Urdu, and this he wrote many years ago. And it's got translated into English as well. An approach to Quranic sciences. I will mention a point here that some of the translations of his books that were done earlier on in Pakistan, the quality of the printing is not great, not standard, especially modern standard. Translation sometimes which others did, Shakespeare language, some professors did. So some of them really need editing and maybe translating or editing and republished. And actually, alhamdulillah, it is happening. This is why there's one of the publishers, Turat Publishing. They haven't told me to say this. I'm not getting money from them, but it just came to my mind. They've started this initiative to republish in modern ways with fresh editing, good, editing some of his old books. And actually, this is being worked upon right now. Ulum al-Quran. And I mentioned this as an idea that this has to be done. This was one of the main things that has to be done. And someone who's working is one of our colleagues here from Leicester. Alhamdulillah, he's working on this. An approach to Quranic sciences. So this should come out. So this, like topics like what? What does Ulum al-Quran discuss? It talks about the chapters, a detailed explanation about wahi, revelation, types of wahi, how the history of the descent of the Quran, how the Quran was compiled, the first verses, the Meccan verses, Medina verses, or Madanian verses, if you want to say, causes of revelation, 7 readings of the Quran, abrogation, the abrogated and abrogated, history of the preservation of the Quran, and then a very important part is doubts about the preservation of the Quran. This is the most important part in this book, is that some of the Orientalists raised objections. Is this carrying on? Yes. Some of the Orientalists raised objections about the preservation of the Quran. Mustashriqun, many of them. So he took each one of them one by one and refuted them. This is the very important part of this Quran, truthfulness of the Quran, the topics. Then this part 2, science of tafsir, different books written in tafsir, the principles of tafsir and commentary and exegesis of the Quran, etc., etc. It's a very, very, very good book. Students study it as well. It's actually part of curriculum of many institutes. So one thing about this is that this was written many years ago. Like he was about 28, 29 when he wrote this. And his father wrote a foreword for him. And you know his father, this is if someone knows his father who is top level. His father actually wanted to write about this, but he said, I'm really weak in my eyesight and very weak. And he had a lot of illnesses. Because somebody said the Orientalists, they are raising lots of objections against the Quran. You should write something about this. So he said, I can't. So I told my son that you start researching, gathering all of these things, and inshallah, then I'll help you and edit it. But when I saw this, when he finished writing it, my son, and when he brought this compilation before me, I couldn't see because I was very weak in my eyesight. But then I got it heard. I saw this kitab, mashallah, this book is such that if I was to write this, if I had written it, even during my siha days, health days, not now, then I would not have been able to write a book like this. He's talking about his son. If I was 30, 40, I would not be able to write like this. This is just similar to, I was going to mention this that time, his teacher was saying that, people feel pride and honored in having a teacher. It's the opposite way. Now his father is saying this about him. And they don't just say this like just because his son, let me just praise him. He gave 2 proofs, 2 dalils. There's 2 reasons for that. Number 1 is because my son, the research and going and taking references and referring to all the different books that he has referred to, I'll be honest, he says, that's beyond me. Hundreds of books he has touched and researched. And number 2, he also knows English and he has a degree in law and economics and all of this, and he understands secular education. So he was able to directly look at the works of the Orientalists, which of course I don't know English, I can't directly benefit from them, to be able to refute them. And this is why this book he wrote is much better than what I could have written. This is Ulum al-Quran. This is one area. Now we come to Hadith and Sunnah. After Quran and Sunnah. And I'm not going to take too much time, inshallah. We want to try to make this short and brief because we spent a lot of time. His contribution to Hadith, we were talking about expertise, like high level contribution. He's authored many, many books. I have so many of his books here in front of me. So many. We can like fill 3-4 shelves of books. Arabic, English and Urdu. And many of them have been translated. The ones written in Urdu, they've been translated into many languages. Like, each of his book has been translated into Bengali language, Bangladeshi language. 3-4 people translating. So he has all these, different books. I would just like to point one thing here is that I actually tweeted about this once. I said, there are books and then there are books. There are scholars, then there are scholars. Same thing. There are books and then there are books. Books anyone can write. Anyone can write. Like you can write. And alhamdulillah, it's good. You should write. But sometimes, like if you want to just be an author, you could be an author of 20 books. You can write one nice story of Yusuf alayhi salam book, children's book, this book, that book. Different books you can take from different places. It's easy to write books. But real books is when you're making a contribution, like in-depth contribution. It's a topic that you've tackled, that's not been tackled in the same language. A lot of people write books in English, but the same things are available in English, but you've just written in a different way. But you've taken a subject that you've just tackled thoroughly. And this is why I said in that tweet, and I mentioned this, that we need scholars writing about things that require contribution. You just don't want to just fill up bookshops with nice colorful books. We need real books. Okay, so when you come to hadith, he's got so much contribution. The first contribution is teaching. The first contribution is teaching. He's been teaching hadith in what we have. Darul Ulum Karachi is a massive Islamic seminary. A lot of people don't know about Darul Ulum Karachi. It's a massive seminary, thousands of students. In the final year, you have like 400, 350 students. When I was studying, there was about 300, 400 students. Thousands of students. For many years, for about 50 odd years, 50, 55 years, he's been teaching hadith. For many years in the beginning, he used to teach Sunnah of Imam al-Tirmidhi. Many years. I actually used to go and attend some of those lessons. No, when I was studying there, I attended his Tirmidhi lesson. Many years. And from there, I forgot to pick up this Tirmidhi there. So I'm just talking about his teaching contribution, right? His teaching. So Dars Tirmidhi, he taught Sunan of Imam al-Tirmidhi, rahimahullah ta'ala. He taught Sunan of Imam al-Tirmidhi. This is, when he was teaching, people started writing his lessons, recording them, and from there, many years ago, like good 40 odd years ago, his teaching lessons were recorded and they got published, and it was actually done by a scholar. And this is available in like 3 volumes. It's called Dars Tirmidhi. And actually he became really famous because of this. I tell the students all the time, all the students from the subcontinent, it's in Urdu and Arabic, from all the Darul Ulums and Islamic institutions in India, in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, maybe Sri Lanka, but all the Urdu speaking ones, every institute, more or less, there is no student who's not heard of Mufti Taqi Usmani. Because when you get to the final year, it's like every student has this. That's how I knew him in my final year. Every student. Dars Tirmidhi for 3 volumes. 3 volumes. And now we have Taqrir Tirmidhi, which is 2 more volumes, which is concentrating on the Kitab al-Buyu', the chapter on trade and commerce. So this was a contribution. He's been teaching this is hadith contribution for teaching for many years. And then after that, since 2002 or 2001, remember I mentioned right at the beginning his teacher, Shaykh al-Hadith Maulana Sahban Mahmud rahimahullah ta'ala, who passed away, who used to say that I consider him to be my teacher, not my student. It's okay, Jazakallah khair, no problem. I'm bringing water, it's fine. He used to say, he's my teacher. This Shaykh Maulana Sahban Mahmud rahimahullah used to teach Sahih al-Bukhari. When he passed away, and I will mention this one thing here, when he passed away, for many weeks in Darul Ulum Karachi, there was no one teaching Sahih al-Bukhari. Reason being is that nobody wants to take the position of teaching Sahih al-Bukhari. Other places, everyone just makes themselves the Shaykh al-Hadith. They were all saying, who should teach now after him? He's got an elder brother, Shaykh Mufti Taqi Usmani. He actually had 2 teachers as well, besides. One was teaching Sunan Abi Dawood, Maulana Shamsul Haq. He was teaching Sunan Abi Dawood. He's passed away now, rahimahullah, as well. And there were some others, Mufti Rashid Ahmed Ludhianvi, who used to be in Karachi, also his teacher, Maulana Salimullah Khan. So many, there were teachers available. Who should teach? And so all of them, they said, Mufti Taqi Usmani, you have to be the next teacher, the Shaykh al-Hadith. This is also a term, it's a metaphorical, customary term. It's not in the Qur'an somewhere that the one who teaches Sahih Bukhari. It's just in the subcontinent, it's become customary. Shaykh al-Hadith is used for somebody. Shaykh al-Hadith means a Shaykh of Hadith. Shaykh al-Islam means a Shaykh in Islam. So many of them, they got together and they all kind of forced him. They had to force him, and he said, no, I'm not worthy, and I'm not worthy, and he went the first day and saying, I'm not worthy to teach Sahih al-Bukhari. But he said, my elders, my teachers, and everybody's forcing me, so I just take that as a good omen, and in the hope and that inshallah Allah will make me capable of teaching it, and he started teaching. So since around 2001 or 2000, around that time, when Shaykh Maulana Sahban Mahmud passed away, he's been teaching Sahih al-Bukhari. Every year he teaches. And then the lessons of Sahih al-Bukhari also started being recorded by the students, and 8 or 9 volumes of his lessons of Sahih al-Bukhari are now published. It's called In'amul Bari. In'amul Bari, Durus of Bukhari. In'amul Bari. See, what I'm saying again, you get some scholars, the greatest achievement of their life is something like this. This is just one of the things, of many other things. If you just look at this In'amul Bari, it's in-depth teaching of Sahih al-Bukhari. So this is another, look, 8 volumes. I'm just picked up one. I can, make it. This is in Urdu and Arabic as well. I have the full rest of them. If you wanted to see the rest of them, it looks good as well. All of them, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's about 8 or 9 I've heard until I've got until 8 volumes. And I know a lot of people who teach Sahih al-Bukhari actually refer to this for the preparation of teaching Sahih al-Bukhari. No problem. Scholars in other places, they read other books, but they also read this. We have, the major commentaries like Fathul Bari of Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani and Umdatul Qari of Aini and others. And then his written work. So these two were like his recorded work from his lessons that he taught. Other people wrote. Dars Tirmidhi in 3 and then 5 volumes, and then this in 8 volumes. But probably, perhaps, Allahu A'lam, his greatest contribution, one of the greatest works that he's ever done, generally, not just in Hadith, is what we see here. I don't want to even pick these up. Can you see these properly? All this is published from Darul Qalam. This is one of his greatest works. This is called تكملة فتح الملهم بشرح صحيح الإمام مسلم. تكملة فتح الملهم بشرح صحيح الإمام مسلم. This is in Arabic. Arabs, non-Arabs can write in Arabic. Some people think, though, these subcontinent scholars don't know Arabic. This is a commentary. As far as I know, there's nobody else alive right now in the world who has a major commentary on one of the 6 books of Hadith, except one other person who has a very detailed commentary on the Sunnah of Imam Nasa'i. Lives in Mecca or Medina. His name is actually Shaykh Muhammad ibn Adam, al-Ethiopi, Ethiopian background. Many, many volumes on the Sharia of Sunnah and Nasa'i. Is still alive, حفظه الله. But that's his greatest contribution. This is one of the things he's done. تكملة فتح الملهم. This is a Shara commentary written in Arabic. We have Sahih al-Bukhari, we have Sahih Muslim. Sahih Muslim commentary, Imam Nawawi wrote a commentary on Sahih Muslim. So many people started writing commentaries, and somebody called Shaykh Shabbir Ahmad Uthmani, rahimahullah, he started writing a commentary. He was a great scholar of Pakistan, and he actually wrote a portion of it, and then he passed away. When he passed away, somebody had to complete it. Again, Mufti Taqi Usmani didn't think that, I am very clever, I can write. Why did he write this? His father and his elders, they actually urged him. This was again from his father. Start writing. And he actually says that, when I started writing, I didn't feel capable. How can I write something like a commentary? So I used to, because my father told me, I just listened to my father, and every day or every day's or every week's work, I used to go and show it to my father. So at least, he's seen it. After that, he says, I did that for a month or 2 and my father passed away. He said, after that, for about 3-4 months, I did not even touch writing this, because I thought, who am I going to show now? I only took this task on because my father told me, I'll check it for you. Mufti Shafi rahimahullah. And with that, I thought, okay, at least I've got someone I can rely on. I used to write every day's work, show it to him. But he passed away. And then it actually took him, a while after that, 3-4 months, where others told him that, look, just carry on. And then other great people. And then it took him good 18 years. 18 years, maybe not every day he wrote, because, but 1994 is when he completed So he started in 1976. His father passed away in 1976. And he completed it in 1994. I told him, I knew he took 18 years. So a few years ago I asked him in a car, I said, so it took you 18 years? He said, but it wasn't every day. He actually had 2 hours fixed for this every day. But he said there were a lot of travels in between, so traveling time, he never used to write. So keeping all that in mind. I also asked him that, this is about 4 or 5 years ago, that from all your books, which book did you feel the most, nashat and pleasure and, this sakina and, you felt really good? Because, sometimes when you write, the topic is such that you have to write, but it's just a chore. And sometimes you write, you enjoy it. Some books are a chore. So he said, the greatest pleasure I got was writing this. تكملة فتح الملهم بشرح صحيح الإمام مسلم. And about this, the original book was written by Shaykh Shabir Ahmad Uthmani, which was called Fathul Mulhim, openings from the Inspirer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on the Shara of Sahih Muslim. Now he's written the next majority, he's written 2/3. The completion by Mufti Taqi Usmani is 2/3. So when he completed this, he actually thought, what shall I call it? So he asked people. Someone said, call it Fathul Mun'im. Someone said, call it this, some call it that. But he said, those days, the great Shaykh Abdul Fattah Ghudda rahimahullah was visiting us, and I presented it before him, and he said, you know what, it's always good to attach yourself to the people before you, rather than become independent. So rather than give you an independent name, author just write Takmila, completion. It's like Takmila of Fathul Mulhim. And this is the greatness of Shaykh Abdul Fattah Ghudda, that a lot of his books are actually books on their own, and he could have become an author of books that he's written himself, but he's always taken an old book and he's just put footnotes. We think it's footnotes, it's actually his book is 90% and the original text is 10%. But because that was his understanding, take someone and then work on them. So this is why it just sounds like takmila, completion of the shara. But the completion is not just a tail, it's actually, from neck onwards. So this is probably the greatest contribution. In here, he's got people who wrote forward for him. Shaykh Abdul Fattah Ghudda rahimahullah wrote a forward for him in there. These are the great people. I have this, I think I'll have to mention this here because you can't miss this. This is a very important part of his, I'll just read it, but we don't have to, I'm just going to read this. That Shaykh Abdul Fattah Ghudda rahimahullah, he wrote an introduction for him in here. And in there, he actually, he talks about the book, that Sahih Muslim is the second highest book of Hadith and did require a great sharah. Imam Nawawi had a great sharah, Sahih Muslim. Of, the original Fathul Mulhim, written by Shaykh Shabir Ahmad Uthmani, that was really praised by scholars. Shaykh Zahid al-Kawthari said that's actually equal on par with Imam Nawawi's sharah. So anyway, Shaykh Abdul Fattah Ghudda said that this was an original, amazing shara, and we needed somebody to complete this. And our great scholar, our Shaykh, who was Mufti Shafi rahimahullah, Mufti Taqi's father, he told his son, and then he described his son. He said, al-Dhaki, al-Allama, al-Lawdha'i, al-Muhaddith, al-Najib, al-Faqih, al-Adib, al-Arib, Muhammad Taqi Usmani. Who wrote this? Shaykh Abdul Fattah Ghudda. Shaykh Abdul Fattah Ghudda says that Mufti Shafi rahimahullah encouraged his intelligent son, his genius Allama, the Muhaddith, the Najib, what do you say? Astute. Faqih, the jurist. Al-Adib, disciplined. Al-Arib, unique. Muhammad Taqi Usmani, to complete the Shara. These are Shaykh Abdul Fattah Ghudda. If you knew who that was, if you knew who Shaykh Abdul Fattah Ghudda was, then you would know that one title from him, he's not, that general is giving titles just left, right and center. He's using all these titles from Mufti Taqi Usmani. And actually, in another place as well, he said, he called him, Shaykh Abdul Fattah Ghudda, who Mufti Taqi Usmani considers as my Shaykh, as his Shaykh, used to call him Tufahatu Pakistan, the apple of Pakistan. So he wrote a forward for him. Secondly, Shaykh Yusuf Qaradawi wrote a forward, حفظه, still alive. And there's a lot of mutual respect between Mufti Taqi Usmani and Shaykh Yusuf al-Qaradawi, حفظهم Allah. One of the great scholars. They disagree on a lot of matters, but this is the beauty of Islamic scholarship. Great people, they disagree, but there's a lot of respect. A lot of respect amongst them. I want to mention that at the end about this respect of scholars. So, Shaykh Yusuf al-Qaradawi wrote, and he wrote a lot of things as well. I don't have time to go into them, but just a quote from Shaykh Yusuf al-Qaradawi says here, فَقَدْ وَجَدْتُ فِي هَذَا الشَّرْحِ حِسَّ الْمُحَدِّث وَمَلَكَةَ الْفَقِيهِ وَعَقْلِيَّةَ الْمُعَلِّمِ وَأَنَاتَ الْقَاضِي وَرُؤْيَةَ الْعَالِمِ الْمُعَاصِرِ جَنْبًا إِلَى جَنْبٍ. I have seen in this sharah of Shaykh Mufti Taqi Usmani the hiss, the feelings, the sense of a muhaddith, the malaka, the know-how, the talent of a faqih, the intelligence of a muallim, a teacher, anat of a qadi, the hilm, the forbearance of a qadi, a judge, wa and the sight of an alim al-mu'asir, a contemporary scholar, side by side. I've seen all of this in here. Shaykh Qaradawi is saying this. And then he says, I've seen a lot of shuruh, commentaries of Sahih Muslim, old and new. But this sharah of Allama Muhammad Taqi, huwa awlaha bin tanweeh. It's most desirable to be mentioned like as one of them. Wa awfaha bil fawaid. It's got the most benefits. And it's rightful bi an yakuna sharh al-asr lis-sahih al-thani. It's rightful to be considered to be as the main contemporary sharah of Sahih Muslim. And then he praises a lot of other things. So anyway, moving along fast, this is Mufti Taqi Usmani's contribution in Hadith. And there's also some other things, like he's got a book called An Authority of Sunnah. Very important, we can't miss, I have to mention that as well. Authority of Sunnah, he wrote it in Urdu, Hujjiyat Hadith. There's a lot of people who reject Hadith. There are people who call themselves Ahlul Quran. We are the people of Quran, they reject Hadith. And I don't have the Authority of Sunnah here, but he wrote a whole book many, many years ago. Authority of Sunnah. It's a must read. You can get that book, Authority of Sunnah. This is Hadith. So we've done Quran and Hadith. Now from Quran and Hadith you have subjects. You have Aqidah, Fiqh. Remember, that's why Fiqh is like a Quran, Sunnah. Quran has Aqidah and has Fiqh and Tazkiyah. So that's why I just mentioned Quran, Sunnah. But let's take quickly Aqidah. Aqidah as well, a lot of contribution. Contributions such that some people, that would be their expertise of life. Okay, that would be the expertise of life. Like for example, just give all of these here. He is an expert in comparative religion. A lot of people don't know that. You have Ahmad Didat, rahimahullah. What he does, this is another chapter of Mufti Taqi Usmani's life. When we said Hadith, Shaykh Yunus is a chapter of Mufti Taqi Usmani's life. We talked about Quran translators. That's one chapter of his life. Multi-dimensional. So, expert in Christianity. There was somebody called Shaykh Rahmatullah Kiranwi. Shaykh Rahmatullah Kiranwi was a great scholar from subcontinent, and then he was teaching in Madrasa Solatiyah in Mecca, and he was an expert of Christianity. And he wrote his book Izharul Haqq in 4 volumes, looking at Christianity, the whole background, everything about Christianity. Mufti Taqi Usmani translated that into Urdu and then wrote a commentary on it. This is in 3 volumes, Bible se Quran tak, from the Old Testament to the Quran, from the Bible to the Quran. And then he translated the Arabic into Urdu, and then commentary explained it. He's expert on Christianity. And then he wrote an introduction to this. He wrote an introduction. Introduction was so amazing that the introduction itself became a book. The introduction was what? So amazing that it became a book. And that introduction was called Isaiyat Kya Hai in Urdu. He wrote it in Urdu. When this book was written, Shaykh Abu al-Hasan Ali Nadwi, who's also written a foreword for Takmilat al-Fatwa Mulhim. Everyone knows one of the greatest scholars to have emerged in the last 50-60 years from the subcontinent. Shaykh Abu al-Hasan Ali al-Nadwi, a huge person, rahimahullah, passed away on the night of Millennium Night, last day of 1999. Great scholar. Everyone knows him. Well respected. His janazah prayer was offered when he passed away in India, in the Haramain, ghaiban. They never do that for anybody. They actually, they announce as-salatu ala Shaykh Abil Hasan Ali Gadwi. Everyone in Makkah, Medina, this guy is huge, Shaykh Abil Hasan Gadwi. Yes, huge person. When he saw this muqaddamah, this introduction to this, from the Bible, Old Testament to the Quran, Mufti Taqi Usmani wrote introduction. He saw it and he said, this is an amazing book. He actually wrote about this. He said, when this book came out, Shaykh Abul Hasan Nadwi wrote about it, that I found in this book, it's an amazing book, one of the best books, a real amazing analysis of Christianity, etc. And when I read this book, I wrote to the author, al-Ustad Muhammad Taqi Usmani, in which I expressed my i'jab, my amazement of this work. And I suggested that as soon as possible get it translated into English and Arabic. Who said this? Shaykh Abul Hasan Nadwi. Because it has a great ilmi value, academic value. لأنها منيرة للعقول والأذهان, enlightens the minds and brains and intellects. كاشفة لحقيقة الديانة المسيحية, it exposes the Christian faith clearly. So anyway, because of that, the Mufti Taqi Usmani got it translated. Somebody called Ustad Nur Alam Al-Amini Al-Nadwi, he translated it into Arabic, and then it got translated into English as well. So it's called What is Christianity? Do I have What is Christianity here? Did someone bring it? So we don't have. No, the introduction, I don't have the English, but this is the Urdu. Isaiyat kya hai? Muhammad Taqi Usmani. Isaiyat kya hai? This is Aqidah we're talking about. Qadianis, all these different groups. There's people who dedicate their life from beginning to end working in the field of Khatm al-Nubuwwat, doing conferences every year. Okay, you shouldn't just do conferences, that's just something that becomes entertainment conferences. But some people do good works. There's some great people, because this was the Qadianis. Mirza Ghulam Ahmad Qadiani claimed to be a prophet and etc. He was from Pakistan. Scholars dealt with the issue in the Shaykh Yusuf bin Nouri and many others, and even in the 80s and 90s. And some people did some scholarly works. But some people dedicate to the whole life. They work in this field. Mufti Taqi Usmani, again, one of the chapters of his life, many years ago, his father wrote a book, Khatm al-Nubuwwat, 200, many evidences he gathered of the Quran and Sunnah and Hadith and many other evidences. It's an amazing book. But anyway, Mufti Taqi Usmani dealt with this issue of Qadianism many years ago. Because what happened, that in that time, in Pakistan, they wanted to consider the Qadianis to be non-Muslims. They wanted to pass a judgment that these are non-Muslim minorities. But they can't do that. They wanted to do it from a government-based level. So the government contacted scholars. They can't just contact those scholars who just do talks on Qadianism. Give a few where is Qadian? They need proper scholars, who have balance and understanding, intelligence. So a few were approached, not just speakers, but real scholars. And one of them was Mufti Taqi Usmani, and there was an assembly, this is what it was written. The book was written. He actually did it, like the Supreme Court of Pakistan, like that. He did and the case went to South Africa. They actually traveled to South Africa, and the case was heard in Johannesburg. A group of people, 1 or 2 judges, Mufti Taqi Usmani and a few others went, and the case was heard, and there they declared Qadianis to be non-Muslim minorities in Pakistan. They can't call themselves Muslims, they can't call the place of worship masjid, etc. And then he wrote this book, Qadianism. This was the work he did. Qadianism on trial. The case of the Muslim Ummah against Qadianis, presented before the National Assembly of Pakistan. They went to South Africa, Johannesburg. I don't exactly remember why they did go, but in what context. So this was his work, and because of his work, and they were considered to be non-Muslims. So this is Aqidah. One of the greatest work, because of which I was reading when I was studying, that really pulled me to Mufti Taqi Usmani, was this book. Hazrat Muawiyah or Tarihi Haqa'iq. Sayyiduna Muawiyah radiallahu anhu and historical truth. There was one scholar in the subcontinent called Maulana Abu al-A'la Mawdudi, rahimahullah. Well known, he has a tafsir of the Quran, very intelligent scholar, but not everything he said was correct. Many scholars disagreed with him. He made some errors in some of his books, some of his writings. Scholars condemned him, refuted some of his works. Some good things as well. He's done some really good things as well. Like one of his books on hijab is a masterpiece, but some things were not right. He wrote a book called Al-Khilafa wal-Mulukiyah. In there he condemned the Sahabi, Muawiyah radiallahu anhu. There were allegations against him that he actually transformed the Khilafah to Mulukiyah. To what? The real Islamic Khilafah, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, Ali radiallahu anhu, he changed it to what? Like a dynasty. Mulukiyah, like being a king. So Mufti Taqi Usmani wrote a book. This book is a refutation of Al-Khilafah wal-Mulukiyah. Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, and the truth. The point is that the main part of this is the way he wrote this. With balance, with understanding. It's just a masterpiece, this book. He's not like getting angry like, oh yeah, Khabis, so what is he doing and what is he saying? And, like just go crazy and berserk about it. That doesn't really do a job. In a nice, calm way. He doesn't even mention Maulana Abu al-A'la Mawdudi in a disrespectful way. He says, Maulana Mawdudi marhum. That's how he quotes him. ने ये फरमाया, मौलाना ने इस वाक़या के लिए 4 किताबों के हवाले दिए. Maulana said this, Maulana said this. But what he did was he took his book and page by page he dissected it. This is what he says, he quotes a paragraph. This is wrong for following reasons. Reason number 1, A, B, C. Reason number 2, A, B, C. Reason number 3, even if you say this, then this. And it's a really, really good book. So these are some of his works in Aqidah section. The Qadianism on trial is in Urdu as well. Qadiani Fitna or Millat Islamiyya ka Mawqaf. The same, the English translation of the Urdu work that I talked about. Now quickly, moving on. His greatest field is probably fiqh. So we've done Aqidah, we've done Hadith, we've done Quran. Where do you start and where do you finish? So I'm not going to talk too much about fiqh. Just give you, he is known as Mufti. Fiqh, he lives, eats, drinks, dreams, sleeps, thinks. Fiqh. And not just of the Hanafi madhab, but generally, he is known by fiqh. The scholars of the world, especially from the subcontinent, they all rely on his fiqh. Big, great, major scholars from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. When Mufti Taqi Usmani says something, that's it. That's the final fatwa on the issue. Great scholars. Great scholars. They rely on him. And also for him, it's a delicate part because scholars rely on him. So fiqh, he has been, since a child, he's been dealing with fiqh. He used to write fatwa since a young age, a young boy. And many books he's written. Many books. His fatwa, Uthmani, have been published. All his fatwa, like his legal verdicts, fatwas that he gave. 4 volumes, these have been published. It's called Fatawa Uthmani. When he was 17, 16, that's when he started. His father used to check them. From the age of 16, he was a mufti, writing fatwa. And he's now 73, 74. So there's 4 volumes have been published. And he's written many other fatwa. Some of his works this is in Arabic, بحوث في قضايا فقهية معاصرة. Different articles of fiqh on contemporary issues. In Arabic, published from Dar al-Qalam in Damascus, subjects and these, like I was saying, there are books, and then there are books. These are real books. Issues like what? أحكام البيع بالتقسيط, the laws of buying and selling on installments. all these credit arrangements that we have and all of this. A thorough article on this. Installments. Yeah, installments like what we buy a lot of these things. Guarantees, extended warranties. Whole article. أحكام بيع التعاطي والاستجرار بيع الحقوق المجردة. This is a whole article on publishing rights, trademark, rights, what do you call it? Copyright. أحكام الأوراق النقدية. A full article on paper currency, the laws, what it was, what it has become, gold, silver, all of this. Price index في تغير قيمة العملة. All the rules, interest, inflation, all of that. Just so many things. There's about when in had or qisas, when a body part gets cut off to put it back on, things like that. It's just lots of different issues. أحكام الودائع المصرفية, all the bank accounts, current accounts and savings accounts, all the laws relating to that. And أحكام الذبائح, and that's been published separately as well. أحكام الذبائح, laws of animal slaughter. That's in Arabic. He wrote a book in Arabic, a masterpiece work on halal meat chicken, Islamic laws of slaughter. And he wrote this after actually what he did was he traveled, he went to some major plants of slaughter in Canada and in Denmark and different places. He checked some major plants. He mentioned in the book that some major plants are such that live chickens go from one side and they come back. They go in that machine, it's a massive machine, they go in there, they are slaughtered and they are defeathered and everything cut into pieces, and after about 10-15 minutes they come out from the other side packaged in boxes ready to go. Live chicken going and coming out from there in box packaged from everything. So what's the Islamic laws? He saw all of that. He went and then he wrote a book called أحكام الذبائح, the laws of animal slaughter, which is translated into English as well, the Islamic laws of animal slaughter. These are all his fiqh. And there's so many other things in fiqh as well. Where are those fiqh? I took one. Yeah, it's here. Look, this is one of his. No, this is the maqalat. I took one volumes. Or did I leave it there or somewhere? But this is his recent work. And this is again buyu'. I'm going to come to buyu' recently, but it's okay. We can just leave it to that. And then one of his major areas in fiqh. People think that this is the only thing he's done, which is what? Islamic banking, finance. Do you know what he used to say, and he still says? That Islamic bank, Kitab al-Buyu' is my least favorite subject. When I was studying, Kitab al-Buyu' was my least favorite. If he did that to a least favorite subject, he said that in class to us, and he's probably written it somewhere as well. He said, I entered this field out of need and necessity. I wasn't really inclined. I didn't really want to get into this field of Islamic banking and finance and right and go into all this stuff. It's a very dry subject. It's not something I actually enjoy. Imagine, he has become the top, if not the greatest Islamic finance expert in the world. There's many others as well, Shaykh Nizam Yaqubi and Shaykh Isa al-Mani' and many others. But they consider him to be the greatest in the whole world, Arab and non-Arab world. And that's why some people think, Mufti Taqi Usmani, who is he? Islamic banking finance expert. That's just like something that he entered, it's just out of necessity, it's just a small part of his life. So he entered it, and he mastered the field. He's got a degree as well. He became advisor to many banks and institutions, over 100, 200 before, but slowly he came out from many of them. Everybody uses his names. He's just on a few banks right now. But he wrote books. Now recently he wrote this, Fiqh al-Buyu'. Amazing book, Fiqh al-Buyu'. This is like 2 volumes. 2, isn't it? 2 volumes. Fiqh al-Buyu' in 2 volumes. But last year this got published. The fiqh of all business transactions in Arabic. He wrote this in Arabic as well. All the stuff to do with business and transactions, Islamic finance, in 2 volumes. This was, I was looking at, yes, we have Fiqh al-Buyu' here in 2 volumes. Look. Number 1 and number 2, Fiqh al-Buyu'. I was talking about this Maqalat al-Uthmani, this is in Arabic. These are also some fiqh articles that were recently published. And then In English, he actually said that I wanted to write in Arabic, English and Urdu in business, Islamic finance. So this is like, one of the main books in English for Islamic finance. People study it, and so many non-Muslims have read this. Introduction to Islamic Finance, English. And this is Islam or Jadid Ma'ishat wa Tijara. This was a course. Many years ago, in the 1990s, they actually arranged in his institute, Darul Karachi, a course for scholars to understand Islamic finance. So Mufti Taqi Usmani was the teacher, and when he taught it, out of that course, this book was published. This is a book for scholars to understand modern economics, because they've not been to university or college. So all the ulama came, attended the course, and he was teaching them, telling them about commerce, trade, getting familiar with the terms and the concepts, etc., etc. Islam and Jadid Ma'isha wa Tijara, modern business and trade. And then some people have a problem with Islamic banking. People can disagree, no problem. But there was a group of people in Pakistan, scholars, a few years ago, they started saying that all Islamic banking is haram banking, there's no Islamic banking. So in about 3 months, he wrote this book. In 3 months, all the allegations, and all the confusions or allegations or the objections, probably a better word. This is called Ghair Sudi Bankari, non-interest banking, all the related masail and all the objections. And the way he thoroughly analyzed every objection of every scholar. Thoroughly, like they say, it's just like contemporary banking. You're getting an Islamic finance mortgage, alternative, they earn more. All the objections. I would just like to point out here that people ask this question a lot, Islamic finance, all these mortgages, etc., etc. Not everyone that advertises their product to be Islamic is Islamic, and not everything is haram. So there can be Islamic alternatives, but not everybody everywhere in the world, because there's lots of strict conditions. Sometimes some people do not implement. As for which are not, it's on an individual basis. So anyway, this was a book that he wrote. And then also in fiqh, business, but this is contemporary fatwa. Somebody gathered his fatwa in English. This Islamic laws of animal slaughter in Arabic, Ahkamul Dhabaih, the laws of animal slaughter. And we can talk about so many different books that is written in this field. Now coming towards the end, he's also in Darul Uloom Karachi. There used to be many years ago Al-Balagh, which was like a magazine that they used to release. They still release in Arabic, Urdu and English in his father's time. And he's the chief editor of the Arabic, English, Urdu. A lot of his articles were published in there. He was managing that. He's part of many organizations. Also politics. That's another subject. Also politics. He's actually, many years ago, in the 90s, he taught a course, Dore Siyasat, Islam and Politics, how to run an Islamic government, Islamic governance system. We have books on that topic written classically. But his book is thorough. He taught a whole course, and then based on that, recently a book came out. Islam or Siyasi Nadriyat, Islam and Political Theories, or Political Theories. It's an amazing work, this. If you look at the different subjects in here he's talked about, it's an absolute masterpiece. There's nothing like this. This is in Urdu, it needs to be published, translated into Arabic as well, but the subjects are really amazing. The different political theories and nizam, how do you say nizam? Systems, political systems that have been in existence. So he's talked about all of that. And then the Islamic alternative, the Islamic way of systems. So first half of the book is all the different systems of the world. whether it's communism, whether it's capitalist system, or the communist system, or the Marxist system, or whatever, or everything, the whole history. And then after that, the Islamic alternative, and why that is better. It's an amazing book. This should be part of the curriculum of students. People should study this, for all the madrasa students. Also, some people, don't like to follow taqleed and madhabs and all of that. Some people, they spend their whole life arguing about why you should follow madhab. That's the whole life. He did his job, been there, done it, finished. Legal status of following madhab many years ago, moved on. It's just one chapter of his life. And then Usul al-Ifta wa Adabuhu. This is in Arabic. Amazing book. We actually I studied parts of this book with him. These are principles of fatwa and giving Islamic legal verdicts, and it's an amazing book in Arabic. It's for students to study. So this is also an amazing book. So we've done his fiqh and fiqh related stuff. And then other subjects. So we've done Qur'an, we've done Hadith, his works in Hadith, Aqidah, fiqh, and then Islamic finance and banking in fiqh. That was one area. Politics. I forgot to mention one book in politics. This was a small booklet, Hakim al-Ummah ke Siyasi Afkar. He's explaining the political ideas and thoughts and opinions of Hakim al-Ummah, Shaykh Mulana Ashraf Lithanwi rahimahullah ta'ala. And all of this as an avid traveler. Do you know how much he travels? And how much he's been traveling? For years. He must have been to the UK 60, 70 times in his life. From 1978 was the first time he came. In the earlier times, in the 70s and 80s, he used to come to England sometimes for half a day. Nobody would know. Attending a meeting, gone. Sometimes it goes half a day Mecca and then half a day Medina and back. Always traveling. Always. When we used to study with him, we used to say, go to class. No class today. Where is he? Oh, he's in Bahrain. Okay. Next day he's back, or the day after he's back. Today there's no lesson. Where is he? We don't know. He's probably in Kuwait, or he's somewhere. He used to travel a lot. Now he's old, he still travels, but that time he used to travel a lot. And most of the times, not most of the time, like majority and maybe all the time, he used to travel alone. Nobody would be with him. Most of his life he traveled alone. It's just the last 15 years to 20 years, or 15, since about 2000, he's been traveling with his wife. But before that, himself, he used to come to England himself. He comes in, and who picks him up? He's very usul based. That's his way. He's very usul based. A lot of people know him, a lot of people want to contact him, but who's inviting him? They know him, they'll come and collect him. That one person, that's it. Whoever has invited him, he's very principle based. So he's not one of those people who will, have 600 people come to the airport to pick him up and 544 to drop him off, and entourage coming and entourage going. He is very, very different. Even when you go to drop him off at the hotel, sometimes I've been in the car, outside the entrance, okay, Assalamu alaikum. You don't even get inside, he'll just Assalamu alaikum, okay, you go. Forget going to his room and do some malish and all of that. That just doesn't work. He doesn't have no malish being done and none of that kind of stuff. He's just a very academic type of person, very, alhamdulillah, Allah has given him health as well and continue to preserve him. So, traveling so much that he mentions this in one of his books, and that one of my friends used to tell me that you should be called a non-resident Pakistani. And many others have said that he spends more time in the air than the ground. That's how much he's been traveling. Throughout the world, every continent. And then when he used to travel, he used to come back in those 70s and 80s, and he used to write about his journey to that country. Especially the first time he went to that country. He would write about his experience, the historical sites he's seen, the scholars he met, the people he met, the things he did. It's like a travel log. Many people use his travel logs. He used to write in the Al-Balagh magazine and then became a book. So the first book that was published was This is called Jahane Dida in Urdu. The way he writes this is like a very novel way of writing, describing we came out of the city and then we saw, greenery on our right, and, we saw beautiful mountains on the left, and it's just amazing. People have been reading this before traveling to countries, what to see and where to go. Alhamdulillah, these have also been translated into English. They've been started. I recently heard about 2 weeks ago, somebody's done this whole translation of this full volume. There's three different books. And there's a reason why he gave different names, not volume 1, volume 2, volume 3. He actually mentions the reason. So, in this, 20 Buluko ka Safarnama, travel logs of 20 countries. This is like his side writing when he's just having a bit of resting time. There's no fiqh, but there is a bit of fiqh as well. When time comes, there's history, fiqh, everything in here. He gives you like even the dimensions and the countries, and how much population in that country, the geography of that country, the history of that country, every subject in this book. The countries that he's got in here, amazing. Like his travels, I just mentioned. Wadi Dajla wa Furat, Iraq, that's the title. So he went to Iraq and everything about Iraq. Misr al-Jazair, Egypt and Algeria in those times. He's got one title here, Uhad Siqasiyun, which means from Medina to Damascus. And then the city of Muhammad Fatih, Turkey. And then he's got Singapore, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Qatar, China. He went to China and talked about Chinese Muslims. America, Britain, India, South Africa. He recently went to India as well. And because before I forget to mention this, in 2011, thousands of people came out, flocked in different cities. When he went to Deoband, Darul Uloom, that great seminary, they actually made 3 days holidays in Darul Uloom Deoband because he came. From teachers to students, everybody attended his lessons. But this was his original trip there. Kenya, South Africa, France, America, Canada. Look, if I give an example, he's talking about France and America, Canada. He says here, Olympic Stadium. So he's got something about the Olympic stadiums. Chicago, Montreal, the Science Center, Niagara Falls, Islamic things, non-Islamic things. And then he gives his final thoughts of the Muslims and what needs to be done, how's Islamic work going on in that country. It's an amazing, amazing work. I mean, I think it's one of the greatest work. So that was the first. And then he traveled more. So then more writing was happening. And then this came out. Dunya mere aage, the world before me. Countries, what countries are in here? Reunion, Turkey again, Brunei. He's got one title here, Dunya ke gird ek safar. One journey around the globe. So he started from one and he went around different countries. From Canada, Japan, Australia, one week in Ireland, Oxford. He's talking about the libraries and all of that. Sana'a, Yemen, Malaysia. There's one, Adirat Ka Suraj, Midnight Sun, Norway. He's talked about Sweden, Finland, all of this. And in here, I think there's some pictures as well, if I remember correctly. Well, there's some pictures in here. No, yeah, there are some pictures. There's some pictures as well of Norway and parts. This is Brisbane, picture of Brisbane. He's talked about Fiji Islands, Australia, all of that. And then he traveled more. So then this came out. Safar dal Safar, journey upon journey. These are all in Urdu. And this has got lots of pictures. This is really good. He's talking about Fiji Islands, New Zealand, the second journey of Syria. All the scholars, they took ijaz of hadith from him. Sheikh Muhammad al-Hanbali, he mentions him in here as well. And many other scholars. Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Uzbekistan's not here, sorry. Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan, all of that. All those Central Asian countries. 9 days in Russia, Albania, 10 days in Japan, Latin America, and then the recent Indian travel journey. And even here, he's got some pictures, I think. So this is like his being a traveler journey. And then one area, tasawwuf. Some people don't like to use that term. Tazkiyah, spirituality. Some people think he's not into that field. But this is the point. Those people who make the aim goal of life, tazkiyah and tasawwuf, that's one part of his life. He has ijazah in tasawwuf from his Shaykh was Dr. Abdul Hayy Arifi rahimahullah, Maulana Masihullah Khan. These are all students of Shaykh Maulana Shaitan rahimahullah. Even his father must have given him ijazah. So he is very, very spiritual. Very, very spiritual. His tazkiyah, tasawwuf, people become bay'ah to him. But the distinguishing part is that his tasawwuf and his tazkiyah or ihsan or whatever you want to call it is very, very balanced. I spoke about this once. He's balanced in everything. That's why if you want to describe him with one word, another word would be i'tidal, tawazun, balance. Even in his writings, all his writings, again I'll mention it here before I forget, many scholars have said this, that one of the greatness of his writings, one of the great features of his writings is balance. It's not like one day you're writing with so much like zeal that when you start refuting someone you go crazy, and then after next week you change your view and then you become this crazy and then you've gone to this side. He writes from the beginning. One of his favorite words is the word perhaps. Shayad, ghaliban, maybe. It seems so. Very particular. He used to tell us in class as well that when you write, before you write, take all your emotions and all your thoughts and throw them out of the window and then start writing. So you don't over-exaggerating, refuting anybody. And he also, this a lot of these things that he taught us, that even when you refute someone, one of the easiest ways to get into exaggeration or not remain balanced is when you are refuting somebody from another group in Islamic matters. Because you already, your mind is made up that he is from that group. Yes, I am from this group, he is from that group, so it's already 80% bad. So you just have to just finish off the 20%. He says when you write, just take him as an individual, take everything out, take your group cap off, and then deal with the issue. When you're writing about somebody, write as though you're writing about your dad, about your father. He never said that. I'm just saying that as an explanation. And that's what I try to do. If someone says, some scholar has said this, what do you think about this scholar? I think I'm writing about my dad. I picture and imagine that this person is asking about my father or my son. That's what the Quran says. وَلَوْ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِكُمْ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ وَالْأَقْرَبِينَ. But a lot of people don't do that. If it's your own sheikh, your own teacher, then you'll find 100 million excuses that to make him right or prove him right or to defend him. But if somebody from another group, imagine a group that you disagree with, then any small excuse to condemn him, this you don't find in Mufti Taqi Usmani's way. Very balanced. He doesn't have these extreme, like what we call emotions. He's not very emotional, like go crazy, emotions. And this is one of the reasons why we have so many fitnas today in the world, especially with scholars. That balance is not there. His father, Mufti Shafi rahimahullah, used to say, I've got a talk on YouTube on this as well, some of the 10 distinctive features of the fuqaha of the subcontinent. I quoted this in there, that he used to say to the scholars, don't be like a sword, be silk. Why? Because silk is such that when someone touches it, it's very soft. But at the same time, a sword can't just cut it. So you don't change your views. You still, what you think is haqq, the truth, what you've understood from your teachers, from your mashayikh, you keep to that truth. But at the same time, you don't become like an ugly person in front of other groups and other people. And to get that balance right is very, very difficult. And you find that in Mufti Taqi Usmani, very balanced. And this is leading me to his tazkiyah and his general, I don't really have a right to talk about this in terms of his characteristics, but these are things that people see. But his tazkiyah and ihsan, I was saying, his tasawwuf is very, very balanced. He doesn't make tasawwuf into some kind of cult. Like I've also said this before, that the Sahaba lived tazkiyah and tasawwuf without a name. Today we have a name, but we don't live it. He doesn't make it into give it over exaggeration as though it's a cult and it's a group and all the murids have to wear the same hat and they all look, people can, I'm not saying it's haram, whatever, but sometimes, people put so much emphasis that it becomes like a cult and group. You attend his gathering for many, many years. I used to attend these in my student days. It used to be on Friday after Asr, and now it's changed to Sunday. His Islahi Majlis. Other scholars, many other scholars would attend this. Now, when this Islahi Majlis means his gathering for spirituality, just general talks. That's also one side thing he does. Okay, so over the years, if you see these here, can you see where my hand is? Yeah, this is Islahi Khutbat, 18 volumes, probably about 20 volumes. These are all his talks. I'll just stand up so you can put the camera onto me. Islahi Khutbat, 20 volumes, 20 volumes. Yeah, or should I just sit and it's okay? It's about 20 volumes. These are all his talks on different subjects. So many imams, Urdu speaking ones, scholars, they actually prepare the talks using this. Then you have Islahi Majalis. These are some specific tasawwuf based, subjects. And then you have here Khutbat Uthmani. These are his Jumu'ah talks published. And then you have Islahi Mawa'id, again some more talks. I have not even talked about some of these books. These are like some other topics that I'll just mention here. Hamare A'iri Masail. Again, these are some, the judgments in the courts on some of family law issues. Islahi Mu'ashara. Islam or Jiddat Pasand, Islam and Modernism. That's an amazing book. It's translated into English. Tackled modernism, which is also a problem. Milkiyat al-Zameen, Uski Tahdeed. These are all Urdu books. Ma'ashi Nizam, our Ma'ashi, economic system, how you should run an Islamic one. Another book on politics, Islam or Siyasat Hadara, Islam and modern politics. Nifad al-Sharia, if you want to establish Sharia, its principles and usul, wherever you want to. Islah. So these are, just, I've not mentioned all his books, yes? There's some others I might have missed out. So I was talking about his Tasawwuf Tazkiyah. Very balanced. People can give bay'ah to him. I know people have given bay'ah to him, but he'll actually tell you to go to 101 different scholars. I'm just exaggerating 101, but he takes it seriously. Go to this person, do this. I don't have time, he will tell you, no, I'm not worthy and I don't have time. He will tell you first, no, I'm not worthy, Shaykh. That's what he ordered. And despite all of this, some of the scholars say, just give me those two books as well. I'll just mention them. Tabsireh. Many different books that were written when they were published, he used to write a book review. So this is his book review collection. Many different books that he wrote a book review on, like Al-Itqan and different other books, Irshad al-Bari ila Sahih al-Bukhari. Whenever different books used to be published, he used to write a book review, and so all his book reviews are compiled in this Tabsirah. And there's another book, Dhikr wa Fikr. It's not a soul book, but it's just certain issues about mu'ashara, about your social life and about interrelations between, relationships, interactions. And then some other books in English, like you might have seen, he's written a book, where is Islamic months, merits and precepts, all the things to do with all the 12 months of the Islamic calendar. Ramadan, Muharram, Safar, Rabi'ul Awwal, Rabi'ul Akhir, 12 months of the calendar. He's talked about the virtues, what's established and what's not established about each month. So this was a side book that he wrote. Then there's another these are some of his small works, Asan Nekia, Easy Good Deeds, which was recently published by this, Easy Good Deeds. And the other book in English, I couldn't find it here, the Torah Publishing published who were the scholars, the great scholars from the Deoband Islamic Seminary, that was also translated. And in the hadith works, I forgot to mention, this was a small booklet, Huzur sallallahu alayhi wasallam ne farmaya, the sayings of the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. It gathered some like 300 hadiths in a nice systematic way. And about this, I heard this from him, that he used to say that, and he mentioned this in a talk as well, that he used to have like 10-15 minutes every day between two tasks. So he used to just take our references, and in a year it became a booklet. Many years ago. He has Radiant Prayers also that he's written. So these are some of his. One of my favorite books, before I do that, this is Nuqusha Raftagha. You know what this is? This is in Urdu as well. All these different people who used to pass away, you know when anyone passes away, people write. Everyone who he had personal connection with, he used to write about them. You know, when they used to pass away. And some, like, amazing, all these great scholars. So he had a list of people. You know, Shaykh Zafar Ahmad Uthmani is mentioned in there, his father is mentioned in there, Shaykh Yusuf bin Nouri. Scholars or non-scholars. He's got General President Ziaul Haq. He talked about him a lot. When he passed away, that, you know, we received the news and it's a very sad day, and then talks about his connection and relationship and merits about him. So prominent people, majority of them are scholars, but not everybody is a scholar in here. He's talked about his mother in there as well. Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda's in here as well. And that's where I think somebody translated, one of my friends, there's a small biography written in English, Maulana Badrul Islam from Northampton. He may hear this, watch this video. I know he will like this video a lot. I just remembered him. So he actually published a booklet. You know Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda. So I don't know where he took from the works of different people. So he's talked about Shaykh Abdul Fattah Abu Ghudda in here as well. And one of my favorite books is this. Every student of knowledge should have this. It's in Urdu. Mere walid mere sheikh. My father, my sheikh. In here you understand his father and you understand him. Their temperament, their nature, the balance, the understanding in every aspect of life. And we can carry on, but we've spoken a lot, so we're going to end on here. But I will just end with this, that a lot of people see, despite all of this, some of the scholars have said that his greatest quality is what? His simplicity and his tawadu and his humility. A lot of people have seen all these pictures. If we could show the pictures, we could. You know, because that's why, you know, when we put these pictures up on social media or someone puts it on, people say, but so what, like, that's how it's supposed to be. Yes, it's supposed to be like that. You know, him sleeping on the floor of the masjid. This is his greatest quality. Like, simplicity, tawadu, humility, and sincerity. You can see sincerity. That's why Allah, man tawada'a lillah rafa'ahu Allah. Whoever is sincere, Allah elevates that person. You know, sometimes you think, how it's so difficult for people, well, for me, to understand sincerity like this is very difficult. You imagine you're on top of the world, but you don't think nothing of yourself. It's just so difficult. That's why you must have an amazing heart to get to that level and not think of yourself. And this is why, if you see his akhlaq, his character, he gives respect to people. He's not like, I'm a big sheikh, and even the general public, he meets people, the way he meets, you can tell he genuinely, you know, meets with. One of his qualities is this as well, that everyone thinks that I'm close to him. He embraces everyone with a smile, nobody's too close to him and nobody's too far from him. This was the quality of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He doesn't get involved in politics with people, you know, he's not involved in groupings or politics. It's just because the whole world wants him. Everyone wants a piece of him. But very balanced. Everyone thinks they are close to him, but he's not close to anyone and is not far from anyone. And one of the greatest qualities of his. So, sincerity, simplicity. There's some pictures like this. He goes in the market, he just buys the fruits himself, and, you know, just simple. When we used to study in Darul Karachi, we wouldn't know where he was, where he would come from, and where he would go. It's like just in from this door, out from there. Nobody knows where he's walking. Nobody recognizes him. He's just like one of the students. And he's short as well a bit, not too short. But his father was very short, Mufti Shafi rahimahullah. He's actually very short. But Mufti Taqi Usmani is like his brother Mufti Rafi' Usmani. You can tell he comes, and he looks the part as well. Mufti Taqi Usmani, especially in Darul Karachi, you can't. He just wears a hat and just like he's out there. He's like one of the students. Somebody once when I was studying there, he mistook him for mistook him for a student, and he called him. He said, "Come, yo!" And he went and he just ran on the back and he tapped him, and he turned around. So Mufti Taqi Usmani was one of the students. He called him. He said, "Bro, come here." And he just like got on his shoulder, "Bro," and he said his name. He looked like him from the back, and it was Mufti Taqi Usmani. So this is his nature: simplicity, tawadu, piety, intelligence, good aql, good mind, good heart, and mashallah. Even when he sits to eat, there was a picture we just saw. He's eating like like a slave, based on the hadith. Akulu kama ya'kulu al-abd. I've seen him eating time as well. Alhamdulillah. I've not spent too much time with him, but a bit here and there. Sometimes in a car journey, I've been in the car, so I've spoken to him. You can see, in the car, he just has a subha in his hand, and there's a discussion on that if somebody thinks it's bid'ah, whatever. I'm just saying, but but he's always reading Quran. He's always never wasting time. His piety, always. He sits in the car. He's always reading Quran, or he's reading tasbih, or he's reading something. Either he's doing some work, but if he's with his family, then both him and his wife, you can see both of them always doing dhikr of Allah, continuous dhikr. You see, these things are important because sometimes when we look at intelligent people, when it's just knowledge, and you don't have all the spirituality, then you could get deluded and deceived. This is the spirituality is the nourishment for the knowledge. This is why you could have intelligent people. Some people are very intelligent. They'll be on social media, are really intelligent. They can quote books here and there. And don't think about anyone specifically. I'm saying just generally. But sometimes when you don't have the spiritual, and when we say spiritual, understanding what spirituality is doesn't mean to be part of a cult. Just your own spirituality, your own connection with Allah, your own salah, your own 5-time prayers, your connection, your tahajjud, your nafil, your dhikr of Allah, your recitation of the Qur'an, your dua, your istighfar. You don't have to be part of any group, whatever, but your own relationship with Allah. That has to be strong. If that's strong, then your knowledge will benefit yourself and others, and you'll become a superstar in this dunya and akhirah. But if that's not there, then 2-3 years you'll be a superstar, then you won't remain a superstar in life. Neither in this life and down there, of course not. So all of this is very important. And I just remembered there's a clip on YouTube as well. Junaid Jamshed, rahimahullah, passed away when he became, not a Muslim. He was always a Muslim, but when he changed his life, and then someone took him to Darul Karachi, and they were telling him Mufti Taqi Usmani is some great scholar, etc., etc. And then I went to his house to eat, and he was saying in that clip that after 1 hour, I'm asking the guy that who is this great Mufti Taqi Usmani that you've been talking about? When is he coming? He said, this one sitting with us for 1 hour in front of us. Because I got a shock of my life. This is the guy, like I've been talking to him. I thought he was just one of the khadims, one of the servants that, he's just one of the guys, and then he will come with some entourage or some, 444 million people behind him or something. Like coming through the airport door and there's, 20,000 people. And this is what's, I don't feel compatibility with this system. I've seen someone, Mufti Taqi Usmani is sitting somewhere and someone tries to press his feet and he's like, astaghfirullah, no, how can you do this? I'm not saying he's never ever in private someone, maybe his son or one of his closest, he might allow it, anyone. If you've got a headache, your wife, your son, or somebody you really know, your nephew, no problem, it's not haram, but like continuously doing this. So, and alhamdulillah, Allah blessed him financially as well. He never takes hadiyah from people I've seen as well, like very rarely. I saw last time somebody tried to put some money in his hand and said, astaghfirullah, like, what are you giving me? You don't have to give me money for the talks or whatever. So there's lots of other qualities of him as well. And I think I'm going to end there, inshallah ta'ala, because we've talked about a lot of things. We've talked about his balance. And I just mentioned, I forgot this as well. In the hadith, recently was advertised that under his supervision, there's a work that has been taking place for the past 15 years. A collection of all the hadiths which approximately will be in about 40 volumes. This in itself is a lifetime work. So a team under his supervision. First, al-Mawsu'atul Hadith al-Nabawiyya, I think it's called. The first volume has been published. Approximately it'll be 39, 40 volumes. Most of the work has been done. Collecting of hadith, giving them universal numbers. So you have number 1, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. Number 1, A, Alif, Ba, Ta, like any slight different versions. Al-A'malu bin-Niyat, different versions and different turuq, different routes of the hadith. Then hadith number 2, and 2, 1, 2, A, 2B, 2C, 2D, like that. All the collection of hadith that they're trying to gather. So that is a great work in hadith as well. And he's also writing a small personal biography. This personal biography is not like, autobiography. But it's not like when you praise, like Shaykh Zakir Rahimahullah wrote Abbeti, like that. Again, there was a scholar from India who actually insisted for years and years, please write about like your student days, your teachers, what you learn, so that we learn from all of these experiences. And he says, how can I write about myself? And this is a great scholar from the subcontinent, great mufti, great scholar for years. So one day he was sitting, I heard this from Mufti Taqi Usmani directly. We were in the car and he mentioned this. And that, because I asked him about this. So he said, I was in the haram and he came and he said, I'm sitting next to the Kaaba and, in the house of Allah, in the haram, before his house, Kaaba, I plead with you, please write this book. So I couldn't say no. And I said, okay, inshallah, I will. And let's start here. And he wrote the first 2 lines in front of the Kaaba. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Then I asked him, I said, how many pages done? He said, about 500 pages have been done. This was about 2 years ago. I said, how many? He said, only Allah knows how many pages it will end the book. How many pages it will total to or amount to. And maybe some other works. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, keep him with health and with afiyah. People need to know the reality of great scholars. We can maybe do another talk on another scholar. We're not trying to be biased. People say that I talk a lot about him, but it's not like he's my relative or something. I have lots of teachers. Why did I just choose to talk about him? I don't have any other reason other than the fact that he's a great scholar and one of the great people that I studied by. So there's no other reason. Maybe we could have a series on, make this into a series. This great contemporary living scholars who are alive. You could have a small, discussion on some of the great scholars who are still alive. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us the ability to benefit from their works and try to emulate them and learn from their life, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.